Year after year, as cars roll off pit lane and take their first Bambi-like lap around the 2.5-mile cathedral of speed, drivers and fans reminisce about the past and the history of one of the world's most iconic racetracks. But in amongst the pageantry and celebration of past, it's sometimes easy to forget the here, the now, the memories still to be written. For the 30-plus drivers competing tonight, this is a race simply like no other. It's a race that is always the first to be circled on the calendar, the one where there's just that extra little bit of emotion, where the thrill of victory means so much more, and where the pain of defeat is amplified like no other. For some, just surviving qualifying and making the field is enough, but every driver always rolls towards the yard of bricks at the start of the 500-mile event, knowing that it could well be their day. For 4 drivers, there's a whole lot more at stake as a championship as well as a 500 crown is on the line. Tim Holgate won here last year and is equal on point to Matt Pawelski in what is realistically a 2-horse race. But last year, Brandon Trost was just 5 corners away from being the youngest 500 champion in series history. And though him and 2011 iRacing Indy 500 champion Tim Doyle are championship quote-unquote outsiders, anything can well happen between seeing the green flag and receiving the white. And maybe, just maybe, the checkered. So yes, this is Indy. It's the Indy field of history, pageantry, and the backstory on top of backstory. But at Indy today, it's the racing that takes center stage. Verizon Countdown to Green is next.
Yes, it all starts here. It's opening day for the Verizon IndyCar Series.
From St. Petersburg, Florida, new cars, some new faces, and an old, solid group of veterans and winners.
Get ready, stay with them here.
They call it the Valley of the Sun. They're running laps at 155 miles an hour.
Long Beach, California, a beautiful destination city with a huge sandy beach, great marinas, cruise ships, and once a year, the Verizon IndyCars.
The spectacular, undulating Barber Motorsports Park Indy Grand Prix of Alabama.
The acceleration begins.
The new champion of the Grand Prix of Indianapolis is...
Everyone wants to win. Only one will.
And with those millions watching around the world.
By the way, it's the biggest race of your lives, gentlemen.
Here in the Motor City, in the first of the duel in Detroit.
Business is picking up in turn 7 at Belle Isle. And the green flag waves at Texas Motor Speedway.
All right, let's go.
Wheel to wheel at 210 miles an hour.
And Honda versus Chevy.
Green flag in the Air Green. Sebastian Bourdais is the leader. In the core of America's heartland is a tiny track that packs a speedy IndyCar punch like no other.
Green, green, green.
Well, let's go racing in Iowa.
He needs a penalty.
This is Indy Toronto, and the green flag flies.
Where he's making a move, but he's going to make him go to the west.
Deep into turn 3. And maybe too deep.
To the Buckeye State. Drivers, start your engines!
There is a giant crowd at Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course.
All right, that's it. Excellent job, young man. Excellent job. You won Mid-Ohio.
The tricky triangle is definitely very tricky.
Look at this pack now! He's not giving him anything. That's how you're supposed to race.
Over Labor Day weekend of 2016, we will welcome and host the Grand Prix of Boston.
It's the Indy Grand Prix of Sonoma. It's the championship decider. It's time to bring the action.
race stands, there they are.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the track located at the intersection of 16th Street and Georgetown. It is the place where the 16th Street Racing League gets its name. We are back home again in Indiana one more time as we welcome you to the 2016 16th Street Racing League Indianapolis 500 powered by Verizon. As we welcome you to Verizon Countdown to Green. We are a little under half an hour away from kicking things off for the craziest 500 miles you will see all year long. And yes, it may only be the 5th of January, but we're gonna put our money on that one already. We've got the pageantry to come, we've got the driver introductions to come, we've got everything to talk about here. As Will Vinson, Aaron Likens, Paul Jenkins, we welcome you inside the Racebot TV booth, streaming live also on IndyCar.com and on iRacing Live. Aaron, Indianapolis, we are back home once again.
Oh, back home and indeed, and as your intro stated, not only is this the 500, but a championship on the line. We essentially have a match race. It's going to be... Well, I've been looking forward to this for 2 weeks since we know just how close this points are, but not only is the points on the line, but this is the 500. So we're going to have multiple storylines because there's going to be 30-something other drivers in the race that they don't care about the points. They want to win the 500. Opportunities don't come along all that often. There's many ways to lose this race, a few to win it, and the storylines that play out tonight, well, it's going to be exciting, Will.
It is going to be fascinating. This is your championship scenario heading into this event. So long as they finish inside about the top 12, top 13, whoever is ahead on the racetrack between Tim Holgate, as we look on board with him now, and Matt Pawelski, who we see on board on pit road, whoever's ahead of those two drivers on the racetrack, they will be your champion. So if Pawelski or Holgate win, they don't only win the Indy 500, they also win the 16th Street Racing League crown. It becomes more complicated if Pawelski and Holgate have a bad day. If they finish outside about the top 13, then you bring in the outsiders. You bring in Tim Doyle, the 2011 iRacing.com Indianapolis 500 champion. He, in that number 11 Snake Pit racing car, becomes a factor. Also, the 007 machine, Brandon Trost, will become a factor. And Paul, just 12 months ago, Brandon Trost was 5 corners away from being the youngest 16th Street Racing League winner in series history.
And proof positive that this race is 200 laps, 500 miles, not 492, not 199 laps. Everything that happens before culminates in that last lap. Doesn't matter if you've led any of the other ones. This is the last lap, and you have to be able to keep it all together. We've seen it time and again. J.R. Hildebrand, you know, in the real race. And it's this every lap you get closer to that finish, the tension just gets higher and higher. You start thinking about, what's the car doing? What's that sound I hear? What is am I losing traction? Is that tire going down? How's my fuel going? You know, these things running through your mind while you're hurtling down the track at 230 miles an hour and you're just trying to concentrate. That is what makes it all worthwhile here at Indy. That work, all of the preparation, all of this comes down to today. The next 3 hours is going to be a wonderful race to watch. And as you had mentioned before, we're talking about 2 separate races here. You know, there's what do we got? 30 guys on the track here. Don't really care too much about the points. They want to win the race. So we're going to be watching the race between between Matt Pawelski and Tim Holgate, of course, to see who wins the championship. And we're also going to be watching who's going to try and win the race outright.
And also, let's not forget, we're in 2016 now, Aaron, and let's be honest, in a little under 5 months' time, we are going to be, once again, at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway for the 100th edition of the Indianapolis 500. It's also worth noting, happy 50th birthday to Penske Racing. That in itself is a fascinating fact.
Fascinating, absolutely. And going back to when it was originated 50 years ago, I don't think anybody, Roger, anybody associated with the team back then could have even dreamt of the success. If they would have achieved 10% of what they achieved, that would be considered a success. But, oh, what a storied legacy that is. But 100th edition, I know you, I, and everybody in attendance last May, as soon as the checkered flags flew, well, that's about the saddest time of the year, because you're at that moment where, well, you got to wait the longest amount of time till the next running of the Indy 500. But New Year, January 1, everybody starts looking towards Indiana, 5 months away, and, well, 100th running, you know, all drivers in that race, well, given any race, actually, but this race is going to mean just a little bit more.
Oh, indeed, so, and who knows, it could well be a Penske driver winning the 100th edition of the Indianapolis 500. Don't forget, you can catch that this Memorial Day weekend on ABC. ABC, of course, providing coverage of the entire month of May, the Angie's List Grand Prix of Indianapolis, as well as a revamped qualification for the 100th running of the 500, and of course, the pageantry itself. And you think back over the years, and there's one thing that came into my head, Aaron. I almost did a bit of a Brent Musburger as we came to live, and I almost said that we are looking live, because we are looking live at this fantastic racetrack, which since 1909, since Ray Haroon, has had so many storylines. And it's fascinating that also just before Memorial Day weekend, we are going to have ourselves, the 7th edition of the iRacing Indy 500, which we can confirm will be here live on Racesport TV and on iRacing Live.
And each year the competition gets a little bit tighter, and we're getting to the point now where drivers are starting to log multiple wins. So who's going to be the first driver to win 3, win 4? So 7 years of running this race, it's starting to become a tradition that these drivers look forward to all year long. Of course, this race tonight means a lot, but that race in May, the official iRacing Indy 500, the fastest 33 on the server gets in. Just qualifying for that event is a notch in each driver's resume, but to win the official Indy 500, well, for drivers that run the IndyCar, there is nothing sweeter than you can do than win that race.
Yeah, we've got ourselves a packed field here today, ladies and gentlemen. We're showing you a couple of the drivers, a couple of the teams partaking in today's event. Of course, we have ourselves some real-life talent as well. There you can see Jack Turner, the number 97 Turner Motorsports car. We ride along board with him as he hits himself past the pagoda on the left-hand side, past the scoring pylon on the left-hand side, and down into turn number 1. Paul, the issue of turn number 1 isn't necessarily the corner itself, it's the shadows. They can play havoc with your eyes, and before you know it, there's the outside retaining wall.
It's so hard to get that corner right. And, you know, this is the fascinating fact about this track. Every corner is exactly the same, but your perspective of it is so much different. Coming down the front stretch, it's almost like you're driving down a tunnel at 235 miles an hour, and you can't see the apex of that corner until you're just about to turn into it. So really, you have to be Johnny on the spot with where you're going to turn that car in. Just about a foot too early or too late, and your entire turn becomes much more different prospect than just simply making the turn. Not to mention there's a shadow across there now. The turn's going to be cooler. The grip's going to be different. And as you come out of there, as you come off of that turn, you see the sunlight when you come off of that corner, and the grip will suddenly change. And you might find your car starting to slide out at the last moment there. So kind of a leap of faith to make that turn into there, but really the perspective is really what bites a lot of guys in a turn 1.
And of course, we are going to see at some point along the line some incidents, but we said that last year, Aaron. And then let's not forget what happened last year. We had one of the longest green flag runs that I have seen ever.
Absolutely. Last year, you and I, we talked about turn 1 being the trouble spot, but early on, it was turn 2. After 8 laps, cars snapped oversteered out of turn 2. Well, after about 5 cars we lost, and you and I were saying that this race is going to be a demo derby the rest of the race, then come lap 46, we went green all the way to the end, which, one thing, watching drivers warming up right now, a lot of drivers practicing their entry to the pits. We lost 5 cars last year due to incidents entering pit road. You have to have that brake bias right. The tires, well, going from 228, 230 miles an hour down to pit road speed, very difficult. But yeah, these teams, especially for the 2 running for the championship, you don't want to be caught out like Brandon Trost last year, coming 5 corners and about just 0.8 of a gallon short of winning the race. You can't afford that. So, I mean, what do you do? Well, you have to plan for some yellows, and yet last year it shows that we can run 3/4 of this race green.
Always count back. That is the rule. You always count back at Indy. You always put yourself 1 step ahead of the game rather than 1 step back. If you're trying to fight back on strategy, you will never win this 500-mile event. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time to welcome your 2016 16th Street Racing League Indianapolis 500 field, and we start at the rear. Enrique Ebo in the 32nd position with a qualifying speed of 224.1 miles an hour. In 31st place, it will be Gary Borgenhagen for Broken Arrow, qualifying speed of 224.5 miles an hour. And then Brian Simpson is in the 30th position, qualifying speed of 225.489. Into the top 20, Michael Chin in the 29th position with a qualifying speed of 226.0 miles an hour. Michael Peters in P28, 227.2 miles an hour for his 4-lap average qualifying. Martin Nagel-Kirkin in P number 27 with a time of 227.7 miles an hour. And then in P26, Vic Cordell, qualifying speed average of 227.9 miles per hour over his 4 laps. Jack Turner in P25, qualifying speed for him at 218 miles per hour. Then we have ourselves Lane Kingsmore in the 24th position, qualifying speed of 221.628. Stanley Ench in 23rd position, qualifying speed of 223.416. Tim Miller in the 22nd position with a qualifying speed of 225.425 miles per hour. Christopher Demerit in the 21st spot, qualifying speed for him of 226.894 miles per hour. Joe Flanagan is in the 20th position with a qualifying speed of 226.894 miles per hour. Into your top 20, Eric Davis with a qualifying speed of 226.7 miles an hour. And ahead of him will be Donald Strout in 18th position, qualifying average speed of 226.8 miles per hour. Adam Dock into the 227 mile per hour ranges in P17 with Terry Mattinson in P16 at 227.4 miles per hour. Just ahead of him is former 16th Street Racing League organizer Scott Manifold, P15, average speed of 227.45 miles per hour. Jim McClure for Snake Pit Racing rolls off in P number 14, qualifying speed of 227.5 miles per hour. Similar speed to Paul Jennings in 13th place. Niles Anders in 12, qualifying speed of 227.8 miles per hour. Dave Jinks for Broken Arrow Racing, qualifying speed of 227.8 miles per hour. And now into your top 10. Austin Espartee in 10th with a qualifying speed of 227.9 miles per hour. It's your championship contender, your championship leader, joint leader, Matt Pawelski in P number 9, qualifying speed of 227.9 miles per hour. In P8, it's Joe Branch with a qualifying speed of 227.9 miles per hour. Ryan Norton will roll off in P number 7 into the 228 mile per hour range in his Broken Arrow machine before the Banshee X car of Randy Crosno rolls off in P number 6, 228.0 miles per hour. Christian Steele in P number 5, qualifying speed of 228.080 miles per hour. And then his championship outsider, Brandon Trost in 4th, 228.1 miles per hour. And now it's your top 3. Tim Holgate, co-championship leader, coming into the event. He is in 3rd with a qualifying speed of 228.2 miles per hour. Tim Doyle, the 2011 iRacing.com Indianapolis 500 winner, he rolls off in 2nd. Qualifying speed of 228.3 miles per hour. And bringing the field to the green flag will be Bradley Walters with a qualifying speed of 228.356 miles per hour. Now, at this time, ladies and gentlemen, it's time to get our pre-race festivities underway here on RaceBot TV and on IndyCar.com, as the Rise and Countdown to Green will continue with the singing of the national anthem performed by the anthem performed by Jim Corneliuson.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave for the land of the free and the home of the brave.
Ladies and gentlemen, Jim Corneliuson with the singing of the American National Anthem as we will continue Verizon Countdown to Green in just 1 moment's time. But Aaron, 10 minutes. 10 minutes. And as of course I say at the track, it's that time, drivers, to your virtual cars.
And the intensity is about to pick up. These drivers, especially Pawelski and Holgate, they've known what they've had to do for 2 weeks, and the time is almost upon us. And, well, I think all season long, every race we've had has been intense, has been close, and the way the weather conditions are, I would not be surprised if we see a record amount of lead changes here this evening.
Now, of course, our good friend, Mr. Jim Neighbors, stopped singing back home again in Indiana at the Speedway in 2014. However, due to the power of the internet, we can always cherish his perfect rendition of one of Indiana's favorite songs. So here we are, ladies and gentlemen, Verizon Countdown to Green. One more time, it's it's not Jim Corneliuson. It is back home again in Indiana with our good friend, Mr. Jim Neighbors.
Back home again in Indiana, and it seems that I can see the gleaming candlelight still burning bright through the sycamores for me. The new mown hay its fragrance through the fields I used to roam. When I dream about the moonlight on the Wabash, how I long for my Indiana home.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that is it for Verizon Countdown to Green. Almost 6 minutes until the drivers head themselves down to the starting grid. Paul, before we end our pre-race show, we've got to get ourselves our picks for the winners. Will it be Holgate or Pawelski winning the race and winning the title? Will it be Tim Doyle becoming a multi-time, big-time Indy 500 winner? Will Trost undo what he did last year? Or is there another driver we've not even thought about yet?
Well, you know, again, like I was saying at the beginning of the show, this is a very long contest. There's a lot of things that can happen. This is Indy. Anything can happen, and doubly so here. A lot of good drivers I like seeing here. Tim Holgate, and you can never forget about him. Tim Doyle, of course, knows his way around this place. I'm kind of liking what the ROX guys are coming along with. Randy Krosno, can he shake the monkey on his back that's been bad luck for so long and finally find himself in the winner's circle? Of course, Ryan Norton, a late entry here, very experienced at these tracks, and is always a very tough competitor, but also a very smart competitor. Might find himself towards the front later on in the race. Of course, you can't forget Matt Pawelski, of course. You know, he's got something he's got to do. He's got several cars between himself and Holgate, and if Holgate charges for the front, then Pawelski knows what he has to do. A lot of good drivers here, but I think if I were to try and pick one, I've got to give my money over to Tim Holgate. I think this is his year.
Aaron, your turn.
Well, Holgate, it's hard to bet against him winning last year. For the championship, I'd give the edge to Holgate just because he's been under these pressure situations more often. But I have alluded to this match race we essentially have between Holgate and Pawelski. I mean, in horse racing, most famous match race, Seabiscuit and War Admiral. But the thing is, we have a match race with 29 other cars on the racetrack. So they're really going to have to really watch where each other is and really mimic their strategy to where they are. So if, for instance, if Holgate's third and Pawelski's sixth, does Holgate really gain anything by going for second and pushing the issue? That being so, I don't know if the winner of this race is going to come from those two. We haven't talked much about our pole sitter, Bradley Walters. 6 races this season, best finish coming back in Road America at 9th. So for drivers starting behind him, you got to wonder, okay, he hasn't had that much time up front. You don't want to see him do what Scott Sharp did in 01 and tag the wall in turn 1. But at the same time, will he be a surprise winner coming out of nowhere and winning this race? So I've done a really good job of answering the question without answering the question. So for the race win, I'm going to go Tim Doyle.
Well, we have ourselves a couple of people. Myself, I'm going to think outside of the box just a little bit. And I'm going to put my money on Christopher Demerit in that number 144 car. He hasn't got a championship horse in this fight, but he has been in many a big-time Indy 500 situation. And I think today he's got what it takes to head himself to the front of the field and be there when it matters. And this race, yes, it's 500 miles, but you've got to make sure you're there for the last 100. Otherwise, there's no point in you even showing up. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes Verizon Countdown to Green, as we are now just moments away from the starting command here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. We will step aside for just one moment, and we will be right back.
Truex on the outside, contact made. 56 slides it into 4. Who's going to be at the stripe? Dead even, give it to Ryan Truex. Truex is your winner over Tandy.
About 8 miles to the northwest of the state capital of Indiana, ladies and gentlemen, you are looking live at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway here on Racebot TV, on IndyCar.com, and on iRacing Live. Practice is over. The cars have assembled down on pit road, and that means it is time for the starting command, which today will be given by the 2011 iRacing.com World Champion of Grand Prix Racing, driving for Co-Anderson Sports, Mr. Hugo Louise.
Gentlemen, you start your engines!
As Aaron, we've been waiting all season to hear those words. It's time to go racing for 500 miles here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway.
And I want to use exactly what you said, 500 miles. There's many ways to lose this race, only one way to win, and that is to be perfect. One mistake, 1 inch, misjudge the aero push a little bit, you get behind on your in-car adjustments. One mistake, your race is over. The winner today will have to run a perfect race, and same goes with the championship. Have to be perfect tonight.
Well, there you can see the guys lined up on the starting grid. The iRacing.com first safety car will pull off into the distance. Here's a look then, one more time at your starting grid for tonight's event. It will show up on your screen and pull. The first challenge is simple. Get yourself through turn number 1. Get yourself through lap number 1. Settle down, get into a rhythm, and from there, you start to count backwards.
3 parts of the race. The first part, stay alive in the start. First couple of laps, always going to be a prospect of trying to figure out what your car is doing, what the other cars around you are doing. You're in more traffic than you probably has ever been since you've been practicing here. You've never had this many cars around you this before. You've never had the track this green before. These guys are all thinking about all of these things. Meanwhile, everything happens at warp speed at these speeds. And if somebody loses it in front of you, where do you go? You have to prepare for all of these things. And you must be prepared before they happen, or you'll find yourself as part of the incident, not avoiding it. The middle part of the race, strategy. What are you going to do with the fuel? What are you going to do with your teammates? Who's where? What are you going to do towards the end of the race? What are you going to position yourself to do? And then there's the final safe 50 laps. This is where you turn it on. You got everything left in the car. You put it out on the field. Nothing is held back. This is the Indy 500. You don't pace yourself here. You don't hold anything back. You win or you go home.
Well, there you can see the cars. They're heading themselves down towards turn number 3. As we move ourselves towards the front of the field, there you can see the driver bringing the field to the green flag. It will be Bradley Walters, but alongside him, it is a veteran. Behind him, it is last year's champion, and alongside Tim Holgate is the guy 5 corners away from victory just 1 year ago. So ladies and gentlemen, sit back and relax. We welcome you to the 2016 iRacing 16 Street Racing League Indy 500, and it's going to start right about now as these guys will storm down in towards turn number 1 for the first time. The question is, will they all get through turn number 1 without any incident? Your first 10, 11, 12 cars are doing so. Bit of 2-wide racing down in your pack, but everyone looks as though they're through turn number 1, through turn number 2, and Aaron, now they head themselves 2 wide, almost 3 wide for the race lead.
Tim Doyle made a nice move to the inside. Bradley Walters, our pole sitter, all the way going to be back down to 4th. Maybe he'll be able to hold 3rd as Trost is into the inside, but Tim Doyle comes off turn 4. Looks like he's going to be our first leader of lap 1 as now they go 3 wide for 2nd place, Will.
Yeah, as if we did a 3 wide start, but we're doing it at lap 2 at 230 miles an hour. As you can see there, that's Brandon Trost in P number 4, the 056 machine of Walters getting shuffled further and further back. Krosno looking strong at the start of this race. He's got his own teammate, Christian Steele, just ahead, but it's 2 veterans now out front, Paul. You got the battle of the Tims, Tim Doyle versus Tim Holgate, Matt Pawelski in 3rd. Basically, whoever's ahead of Holgate and Pawelski will win this championship, period.
And we said at the beginning of the race, Will, Matt Pawelski has something to prove. He knows he has to get it done, as he's going to try and make a move on Tim here for 2nd. And from 9th to 2nd in the first 2 laps, and now he's taking 2nd place in the middle of the 3rd lap. So Pawelski obviously knows what his homework assignment is, and he's taken to it. Get to the front of the field, establish a rhythm, and stay out of the mess.
Well, there you can see a bit of 2-wide racing going on down in your pack. Number 31 car of Adam Dock and Jim McClure there in the Grateful Dead car going side by side as they head themselves down in towards turn 3 and 4. If you'd like... We got a lead change, and it is Pawelski now. To the point, ladies and gentlemen, if you'd like live timing and scoring, this is what you need to do. Go to racebot.tv/timing. That is racebot.tv/timing, as Tim Doyle will move himself back to the race lead. So, 2 corners, 2 lead changes. Aaron, this is what it's going to be like all day long. Position your car, set the pass up. It doesn't matter if you lose the lead. You've got to make sure that car, though, works in traffic throughout the run.
Doyle showed just how strong his car is there, which Doyle does have a very outside chance to win this championship. If that's the case, he's going to need the bonus points for leading the most lap, which is why I think we saw him be a little bit aggressive there to retake the lead. Pawelski now is going to get a draft, going to look to the inside. Who is going to lead this lap? At the line, it is going to be still Tim Doyle. So Doyle's led, but Pawelski's going to pull out to the lead. This has been the first time he's been to the lead through 2 corners, but let's see how Doyle's car reacts down the draft, down the back straightaway.
Yeah, and you know what that gap was? It was 4 1/1000ths of a second. So yeah, that photo finish camera is already being warmed up, as he can see Tim Doyle looking back to the inside. Easy sweep through turn number 3 and 4. But now we're going to go back on board with Pawelski. We're going to show you just how much you can suck up on the exit of 4 as you head yourself down into 1. There's Pawelski. There's no point in even defending it at this stage. But as they crossed the yard of bricks that time by, Pawelski led the lap by, get this, Paul, 3 1/1000ths of a second.
We're going to see this back and forth for a little bit, but I think eventually Pawelski and Doyle are going to kind of settle into a rhythm here and start thinking about maybe the second part of this race. And it looks like Pawelski already starting to move a little away from Doyle. So it's possible that Doyle's decided he's just going to pace behind Pawelski. Maybe think about conserving a little bit of fuel here. But definitely the adrenaline of the first few laps, we saw it in abundance in the beginning here. A lot of hard racing for the start of this race. Everyone wants to get into a position where they feel safe, and as I said, here comes Tim Doyle again making a charge to the front.
Yep, so it's Tim Doyle leading with Pawelski in second, Holgate in third. There are other battles going on track. We're going to show you this one very quickly. This is outside of your top 10. Christopher Demerit, Adam Dock, Jim McClure. 3 very established drivers right now, running in 13th, 14th, 15th place on the racetrack, Aaron.
And right now, this is, if I were running a 500-mile race, this is where I would want to be. Up front, they are going at it very fiercely. You don't really gain anything by doing that on lap 6. So right now for Demerit, Doc, McClure, that's exactly where I'd want to be, just outside the top 10, still within striking distance, a little bit of strategy, get up there. But right now, you really don't want to be fighting tooth and nail for positions.
Yeah, as behind, you've got yourself nice little gaps going on here. Joe Flanagan, Eric Davis, these are 2 guys running themselves pretty much in a 2-car pack. We have 8 cars in that lead group right now, with Austin Espartee, Joe Bryant, Randy Crosney just kind of there in the mix. You can see Dave Jinks right on the coattails of Randy Crosney right now as they work themselves through 3 into 4. There goes Jinks down to the inside of Crosney. 3-4. That was a little bit too close there, but now Jinks will get himself the run on the exit of 4 down into 1, and he backs out of it. And here's the reason why, Paul. Some people are already thinking about 4-letter word beginning in F and ending in L. Fuel.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially the guys up front with this jousting back and forth. Of course, everyone is the advantage to that because it slows the front cars down. You can get off of the gas a little bit, save yourself a little bit of fuel. So while these guys are jousting up front, the guys behind are conserving gas. Now, at full song around here, you're going to go about 30 laps before you need any fuel if you're going to go green all the way around. So if we can conserve just 1 or 2 laps, not so much does it save you on the track and keep you out there so that people make more fuel stops than you do, but you spend less time in the pits taking on gas. So every little half second counts when you're standing still and everyone else is hurtling down the track at 230 miles an hour. So every little bit counts. Any kind of fuel you can conserve on the track translates to less time in the pits.
So far, your fastest lap of the race has been scored by Randy Crosney. In fact, he's the only driver into the 39-second range with a lap time of 39.992. A lot of drivers, though, in that 40.0 bracket, and the draft will prove to be of use for a lot of these drivers. It's settled down just a little bit out front right now. Pawelski's now led 3 laps. Tim Doyle has led 7. So Pawelski is trying to get himself that bonus point, Aaron, for leading the most laps, which, if it's going to be a case of these guys finishing inside the top 10, won't be a factor. If disaster hits, that's when that bonus point might well be important.
Yeah, you never want to leave any points on the table, and I'm sure the past 2 weeks, both Pawelski and Holgate looked back at their season and thought, well, maybe if I would have ran a little bit harder there, because we saw Holgate on the road courses really stalk his prey a long time, as Holgate now going to move to 2nd place. So our championship contenders now run 1-2, so we are truly in a match race situation.
We are indeed. Pawelski and Holgate came into this race separated by absolutely nothing. Zilch. 0 points. It was the dream scenario. But you just heard that there, Aaron? That was a lift into turn 3 by Holgate. He doesn't want to go for that race lead right now. He's taking fuel numbers over leading laps. And being in P2, he now has the opportunity to help really command the field behind him. So he's in a good place, but now he looks down to the inside and he'll take that race lead away. He's just playing with us for a corner.
It's like these drivers are thinking about the end game now. With Pawelski and Doyle, you saw sometimes you would be coming out of turn 4, sometimes you would have the lead at the line, sometimes you'd be that 4,000th. Now does Pawelski strike back? You bet he does, to the inside. So Pawelski going to go back to the lead. So already you got to think, do you really want to be leading this race when the white comes out? I know we're only on lap 13, a lot of stories left to be written, but right now, being out front, I don't know. As Holgate's going to go back to the lead to the inside, will he get credit for the lap led? I think he does.
Yeah, and Brandon Trost is on the move right now as well, with Tim Doyle to head themselves down into one once again. Now, actually, Paul, if we were to remove the top two drivers from the equation, we've got ourselves a battle as well for P3, P4 in the championship between Brandon Trost and Tim Doyle. P1, 2, 3, and 4 are running 1, 2, 3, 4 on the racetrack right now. So this is an interesting battle between Brandon Trost, the kind of new kid on the block in some ways. He's an established IndyCar driver now, and Tim Doyle, who has basically been an IndyCar veteran, an IndyCar driver since not this car, the DW12 was released, but the IR05 car came into being on the iRacing.com service back in 2010.
Right, one of the old guard, absolutely, is looks like Bradley Waters went ahead and got ahead of Tim Doyle for fourth. So that foursome is broken up for the moment. But you can see these guys are starting to string out a little bit here. But Brandon Trost has a score to settle. Being denied the win on a fuel number. He's hungry. He wants this, and he knows he had it. So he wants this win. And you mentioned, of course, we do need to keep a real close eye on these guys. We've been talking a lot about Tim and Matt. But, Brandon and Doyle, we're going to have to keep a real close eye on them, because should, God forbid, something happen to Tim and Matt, the story changes. The story changes immediately. And, you were talking about also lifting. This is a track of momentum. If a car lifts, you'll see guys passing each other, and you'll kind of wonder why they're doing it. This is a track of momentum. If the car in front of you lifts, you're put to a decision. Do you want to lift with him and risk the possibility of getting run into from behind? Or do you go ahead and make the pass and just keep your momentum up? There's a lot of decisions to make here. Also, we're talking tire wear, and we're talking about lightning fuel loads. The balance of this car changes as the fuel burns off. The balance of the car changes as the track wears in, and the balance of the car changes as the tires wear down. All of these factors go into changing the way these cars drive. So all of these guys are making adjustments, taking notes, trying to figure out what they can do to improve their car for each pit stop, which is going to happen in, let's see here, probably another 13, 14 laps.
And you mentioned one thing. You mentioned the fuel coming down, the handling of the car changing. It's time, ladies and gentlemen, to talk about the weight jacket and the anti-roll bars. Don't forget that each of these cars have themselves an anti-roll bar, a little lever in the car for the front and for the rear, which what they can do, they can stiffen or soften the handling of the race car on the front end or the back end. They also have the weight jacket, which affects the right rear of the car, and the amount of how high or up or down or low it is on the ground will affect the way the car turns into the corner. So these guys have got in-car tools. They've got fuel mixture settings, and yes, Aaron, they can use all of these things throughout the course of their run. This is not like the IRA5 car in the late 2000s when they took the fuel mixture knob away. They've got the ability to manage fuel and do all of these in-car adjustments whilst going 230 miles an hour into turn number one.
And I think that's a very good point. And as we were battling for the lead there, I think it was really a poker match of, well, yeah, I want to lead, but no, I actually don't want to lead. I want to run second, because you can dial it back a little bit. And as Paul said, if you save a little bit of fuel now, you can really gain it later by not having to take as much fuel. So right now, Holgate is leading, but you really don't want to lead because you have to run a little bit more. Your car's doing all the work. You're pushing more air. And as I say that, Pawelski goes to the lead. So what do I know about Pawelski? Back to the point.
There's an interesting point. It happened whilst we were off screen. Bradley Walters is in fourth. Tim Doyle has fallen down into P5. Now, for a moment, Paul, they were 1 second back. That magic number we are looking is somewhere around 0.8, 0.9 of a second when you get the full impact of that draft. They almost fell too far back. Before top four drivers have been able to disappear, as SPT now goes past the Merritt. But Tim Doyle, he's fallen back, and this is strategic sometimes, but we believe he had a little bit of a bubble on the exit of turn number 2.
Yeah, we'll have to keep an eye on that. Some of these guys were complaining about the cars getting loose as the tire wear wears in, and we're getting in towards that danger zone here. And you're talking about Bradley Waters falling back. He's 0.6 now, so he still has that taste of that draft. I think he's going to be all right. But part of the problem he may have been having is the closer you get to these cars, the more disturbed the air is around them and the less effective the downforce is. A lot of these cars will start exhibiting what's called a push condition. The car wants to drive straight when you turn the wheel. And by backing off a little bit, you can get a little more air on the front wings, and you can improve that situation. And it helps us to not beat up so badly on the tires, and also, of course, helps immediately in getting into the corners. So Walter's maybe thinking about, you know, making some adjustments here later on at this next pit stop to try and mitigate that situation, since he's finding himself now back in the pack. And meanwhile, of course, we're talking about Pawelski and Holgate and Trost making their way off. Looks like actually Walters is moving his way back in. 0.4 now behind Trost, and maybe trying to get himself back into this battle, leaving Tim Doyle behind. Tim Doyle 1.1 seconds back behind Bradley, so perhaps he might have lost this draft.
Yeah, it looks as though that Tim Doyle has fallen back behind that magic number. We'll keep an eye on the lap times, because it was actually a 40.7 there for Tim Doyle, a 40.1 for Bradley Walters. That last time by 0.6 of a second. Tim Doyle needs to get a move on. Otherwise, there'll be 4 cars on this lead pack, and Tim Doyle's going to have a lot of work to do as we get closer to the first round of pit stops here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. To go back to the point about the cars getting loose, the back end of that car sliding around, that's where the anti-roll bar adjustments come in. Stiffen the back end of the car up to make it not slide as much. You can use weight jacket, it's not as effective. But the guys here are going to have to really use both the roll bars and the weight jackets to keep in touch with the changing dynamics of the car. And of course, something that will change depending on whether they're running in clean air or in dirty air.
It will change indeed, and as it does change, well, speaking of changing, we do have a change for second the previous lap as Trost now goes to second. Holgate's car just really looks to be struggling out of turn 2, so speaking of those adjustments, you have to stay on top of it. On the flip side of that, if you go from second to first, instead of having a lot of dirty air, now you have the clean air, and when you get a car behind you really close, that can really make the car very loose, so you have to work the opposite way. These crew chiefs will also let these drivers know that when they pit, go back to neutral, go back to where you were at the start of the race. It's very easy to make a change during the run and not make that change when you come out of the pits.
Let's have a look then. We're going to keep this graphic up. We're going to go on board with Tim Holgate. Exit of turn 4. So you see that gap then as he comes down past the yard of bricks. It's within 0.2 of a second. In fact, it's pretty much nothing. But he checks up in towards turn 1. That will cost him 0.5 of a second over Brandon Trost. But this is where Tim Holgate's struggling the most. Through turn number 2, he loses a full 0.1 of a second there, Paul. That Stanley Pick Racing car is going to have to do some adjustment on his first journey down pit road, be it under green or under caution.
And it does look like that car did exhibit a pretty mean push. Holgate got into the turn a little bit earlier there, might have contributed to that, but definitely the car seems to be moving away, and you can see when he turns into the turn, he's getting those left wheels below the white line there. So trying to mitigate the problem by using more of the track to make the turn. So it's a telltale sign when you start having handling problems. These guys are going to start using more and more of the track. So Holgate in a situation now where he's trying to figure out what does he do. When you think about changes, you've got to think about not only what you're going to do to the car in the pits, but how that's going to affect the car later on and with your adjustments in the cockpit. You had mentioned before, you got to remember to get the car back to neutral when you get back into the pits. You got to remember where the car was, But if you make changes to the car, it's not exactly the same thing. So got to be very careful making changes. You don't go too far in one direction or the other and make the car even more unstable.
We've got our first retiree, Brian Simpson, out of turn 2, brushed the wall. And we've talked about turn 2 having a little bit of understeers. Brian Simpson got to the outside, nipped the outside wall, went right into the inside. He's off the track. We're going to stay green, but we do have our first retiree.
Yep, as we're going to get ourselves another look at that one then. This is down into turn number 2. It's Brian Simpson. I was about to say, at that point, we had all cars still circulating and all cars still circulating on the lead lap. Now, at this point, Simpson, he just pushes up into the grain. From there, it's always just a waiting game. You know that safer barrier, that wall is coming, and you know that from here on in, you're basically on for the ride. But Brian Simpson, for the time being, he's going to be out of the race. You can see a hard impact there with the wall. The IndyCar.com branded car is out of this event. That's our first retiree. 28 cars on the lead lap. The last one of those is Paul Jennings in that number 74 fast daddy racing car. As, well, lap number 28 of 200 is going to be scored complete in the books this time by. We have been green the entire way, and all of a sudden, for that entrance to pit road, it's that thing that goes and plays in drivers' minds. At this point, if you're going to get the speeding penalty, get it now. Don't get it on the final stop of the race, get it now. But at the same time, people will always be too conservative on this first time, Mim, and they want to work it closer and closer and closer. It's like a batsman figuring out where that fault zone is. It's like a bowler figuring out just how fast he can throw that ball, how accurately. Exactly the same thing, just with a pedal on the right foot and a pedal on the left.
And you have to, yeah, and that's the thing. Every second lost entering the pits, every second lost exiting the pits translates to over 100 yards on the track. And I mean, just imagine the amount of time, just a tenth of a second lost or gained in the pits can mean so much out on the track. So these guys have to be thinking about where their braking point is, how the brake balance is, what are the tires doing. You don't want to be that guy, the one who manages to wreck going into the pits or manages to wreck coming out of the pits. And we should be seeing these guys any moment now.
And by the way, those of you that's playing Indy 500 bingo, I think that's at least 3 things so far that we have successfully achieved. We've done the You're Looking Live, we've done ourselves. Oh, we got Pawelski, the first driver then to commit on towards pit road. We've got ourselves Tim Doyle coming in as well. Conclusion of lap number 29 of 200. And to finish off our point, you've also, of course, heard the football field in the space of a second moment. So, here is Pawelski. Broken Arrow, number 75 car, heading himself on towards pit road. You can see that Tim Holgate is going to do exactly the same. He drives on past. Pawelski, a little bit sluggish, actually, on towards pit road. We'll keep an eye out on him. We'll keep an eye out on Tim Doyle. It's going to be a longish stop, 10.6 seconds, filling it up. Out and away then. For Pawelski, he will come out ahead of Tim Doyle. Tim Doyle will be out and away in a total time of 9.7 seconds. The green flag pit stops are underway here. Tim Holgate, well, he's just gone past turn number 1. We've got more drivers on pit road, though. Look at the gaggle of cars coming on pit road, Aaron, this time by.
And last year's race, we had a 5-car incident because one car messed it up on entry, tagged the pit wall attenuator, clogged the pit road, and there was no place for many cars to go. So green flag pit stops can be very treacherous here. And Will, don't forget exiting the pits. There is a bump shortly after the cones. If you're in the wrong gear, when you hit that, you're going instantly into the spin cycle.
Yep, we're just going to get some of these times up for you. Christopher Demerit, 10.6 seconds. Holgate is on pit road. We'll cycle through to him in a moment. Trost out, 11.9. Joe Branch in 10.1. Christine Steele, 11.2. As we've also, of course, had Espartee in. We've had Demerit in. Niles Anders, it wasn't a 0.1 second stop, but now it's time to look at that driver of Tim Holgate. You can see him bottom right-hand side of your screen coming in. Also, Bradley Walters on pit road at the same time. Pit stop time for Tim Holgate then. Let's have a look. We'll zoom on in and we'll see what he can do. 10.8 seconds as he comes out of the way. Walters will come out ahead of Holgate. 9.2 seconds. Fantastic there for Bradley Walters in the 056 car, Paul.
An amazing stop by Walters to get in front of Holgate. And meanwhile, Pawelski just coming out of turn 2 now, so has a head of steam. We'll see if he can actually get ahead of, get a hold of these two and where they're going to be. And doesn't look like he's going to get there. I think he's going to have to settle in behind Holgate here and work on him from there.
Well, Brandon Trost, final driver in, and Aaron, 3 laps longer. 3 laps longer.
Yeah. 3 laps longer, which that may equate to 1 shorter stop. But for Bradley Walters, his pit in time was 7/10 slower than Holgate. So I have to wonder if he did not take a whole tank of fuel because he was 7/10 slower than Holgate and yet got out in front of him. So I have to wonder if maybe he short-filled to get in the draft.
Very slow in lap there for Brandon Trost, a 52.313. Compared to his rivals, it's put him down in P6 for the time being. This is his way. By the way, Tim Holgate has gone to the race lead. No, Walters will have the inside line in towards turn number 3. Holgate stays in line for the time being. So as it stands, after 1 pit stop, it's Walters in the 056 Zip Speed weaponry car, about to lose that race lead to Tim Holgate as they head themselves down into turn number 1. Holgate now leads in the number 6 Abutu Racing. It's Snake Pit Racing car, Christopher Demerit in third, Matt Pawelski in fourth, and Austin Espartee rounding out your top 5. We'll get your top 20 up on the left-hand side of your screen. 35 of 200 laps scored complete. Green for a pit stop to start here the 2016 16th Street Racing League Indianapolis 500 on RaceSpot TV, streaming live on iRacing Live and on IndyCar.com. Our coverage today is powered by Verizon and Racer magazine. To get the latest issue in stores or online now. We're going to step aside for just one moment, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to take you side by side on RaceSpot TV. And oh yeah, it's also time to have a little bit of trouble on the racetrack. We saw smoke. Is everyone okay? We believe they are. Side by side, if anything happens, we will be right back. Time for a little bit of fun.
Sunday, Sunday, Sunday. Prepare to get a roundhouse of awesome square in your face hole, because the 400 at the Brickyard is back at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. It's got real bricks made of tears. Nothing's more American than the Brickyard. Not even an eagle punching another eagle at a rodeo. Gordon, Stewart, Bush, Jr. What about Jimmy? Shut up! There's a bajillion drivers. How do they all fit on the track? Witness the insanity of men. Mensanity. 400 miles of mensanity. Multiplied by 200 miles per hour equals $30. Math sucks! Still don't have your tickets? Kids 12 and under get in free. So do chinchillas. Bring your chinchilla, it gets in free. You got toast? Bring it, because there's tons of jam at the Brick Fest with Justin Moore, the band Perry, and Brantley Gilbert. He's hot. Who said that? Sunday, Sunday, Sunday. Rip open a NASCAR-sized can of purpose.
My life has meaning.
Chug it!
Get out of my way!
Here's your man card. It's a card made of real man. Bring it to the 400 at the Brickyard July 27th and give your prefrontal cortex a wedgie. Google it!
Simulated racing can be awesome, but it can also be kind of a free-for-all. Interestingly, auto racing faced the same problem in its earlier days. Whether it was on the back roads, the beaches, or the city streets, the racing was fun. But there was always a certain level of chaos and danger, until some folks came along and put some order to all of this. Stuff like official racetracks, regulations about weight and equipment, and enforcement of standards. That's what gave us high-speed excitement, fast-paced action, and photo finishes. That's when racing became racing. The guys over at iRacing.com have made the same transformation in the world of sim racing. Sure, they've got the most accurate tracks and realistic cars out there, but that's just the start. See, iRacing analyzes the performance and results of each driver in every race, so you can be sure you're always placed in races where the competition will be tight, and that those reckless drivers who ruin it for us all are kept in the pits. Not to mention that with over 45,000 active members already in their vast community, you can find races day and night, so you can always get in on the action. You can even join a league of your favorite series. And since updates are always automatic, you don't have to worry about software and can focus on the track. Zip up your fire suit and check out iRacing.com.
Stay tuned for the greatest spectacle in racing.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the 2016 16th Street Racing League Indy 500. We are at 1/5 distance, and to the race lead, it is Christopher Demerit, all the way from P number 21. Tim Holgate is in second, Bradley Walters in third, Matt Pawelski in fourth, and Tim Doyle is in P number 5. 4 drivers in this breakaway group. They're still battling as Pawelski moves back up into third. Tim Doyle is 1.4 seconds behind Bradley Walters right now. What needs to happen, and this is happening already, Tim Doyle, Austin Espartee, and Brandon Trost are working together to make sure that they get themselves back into contention in this front group. Last time by, 1/10 of a second faster. They do that 2-3 more laps in a row. Basically, it'll be the draft and the rocket ship with Tim Doyle.
Yeah, and these kind of races, you talk about working with people you wouldn't normally work with till the end of the race. Looks like, and here comes Pawelski going to make a try on Tim here. So They're going to try. It looks like Doyle, SPT, and Brandon Trost are both going to. All three of them are going to try and close this gap here. And meanwhile, I was talking about Tim Holgate earlier with the car not handling. Holgate moving to the front may have been a move for him to try and make that car operate a little bit better in the draft. But now that he's found himself behind two cars again, I'm watching his car wandering closer and closer to that wall. So frustrated Tim Holgate trying to make some changes to that car and hold on to that lead, or that lead group.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting to see what will happen. Now we're into that second green flag stint to the race lead. Well, that you can just see, bottom of your screen, it's Matt Pawelski who moves himself back to the front. We're not going to get too excited. We always say, Aaron, like an Indy 500, it's like an orchestra. You start off with the big crescendo, the big noise, and then you slow it down. You let it build up, build up, build up to the climax, which will be the last 10 laps of this event.
Yeah, that's a very good illustration of this, but in the middle right now, I think we have a very great real chess match going on. Holgate was leading for a while. I don't think he wants to lead. This has been what he's done all season long. I think he saw other people go further than he did last time, and he's got to save some fuel. You do not want to have to come in while the leaders are taking the white. Just ask Robbie Gordon in 1999 just how aggravating of a feeling that is. It's something you can never shake. So Holgate, I think he's trying to get that one extra lap right now.
Yep, shout out to all the people watching this race in Europe. Yep, it's 12:30 in the morning in Her Majesty's United Kingdom, 1:30 in the morning in parts of Europe, 2:30 in the morning in others. So if you stuck around to watch this one, a very good morning to you. As we can see there, a look from our aerial coverage, you can see there are your top four drivers. At the back of that pack is Bradley Walters. He seems to just be content to run where he is right now. But Tim Doyle last time by a 40.293. Bradley Walters 30.329. The guys in the pack ahead of him, well, they're all doing pretty much equal times. But now Tim Doyle has got that gap down to 1.1 seconds. And because of that, the speed is going to become a factor with that draft ball.
It will, and it does look like, looking at the speeds and the gaps between the cars, that we are settling in here, so to speak, if you can call driving around a racetrack at 230 miles an hour within a couple of feet of other cars settling in. But it does look like these guys are trying to set up a pace now and see what the car is going to do and just put themselves in a position. Some guys thinking strategy. I'm very interested about Brendan Trost's extra 3 laps. This could become a huge factor later on in terms of his fuel efficiency and his ability to stay on track longer. So we'll have to keep a real close eye on the next couple of stops he makes to see what happens here.
Yep, ladies and gentlemen, we have just had a quick technical glitch there with our live timing and scoring. We are going to get you back there as we've got ourselves the chopper circulating around the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. We have to step aside for just 15 seconds. We'll be right back. Well, there we are, ladies and gentlemen. We are still green here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. We have now completed 46.5 laps of 200 here at Raceport TV and streaming live on IndyCar.com and on iRacing Live. So far, there's been one retiree. That is Brian Simpson. But apart from that, we've got a couple of people scored laps-ish down, or getting close to being laps down. Traffic may well be a factor in this event before all is said and done. There you can see Jack Turner in the number 97 machine. He's having a bit of a rough day as it is right now. His pit stop, well, it wasn't bad, it wasn't great, but he's 37.4 seconds behind your race leader. He is looking as though he could well go down a lap very, very soon. And it'll be fascinating to see what happens when that gaggle of cars comes up to that bit of traffic, because, Paul, that's when we're going to really see how cars handle from being in clean air to being in dirty.
Yeah, handling lap traffic is always a precarious situation, especially on a track as tight as this in the corners. And, you know, these guys are if you encounter traffic in the right or wrong place can make all the difference in the world. If Matt comes up on a guy right on a turn and gets slowed down, all of a sudden he's going to get run over from behind. And so timing your traffic is very, very important. And of course, you know, it depends on who you're racing with. I haven't seen much of Jack Turner or Henrique, so a lot of these guys are trying to think, well, what are these guys going to do when I get close to him? As Tim Doyle, or Tim Holgate rather, goes ahead and takes the lead from Matt Pawelski. So now that Tim Holgate is back in the front again, maybe his handling problems might be settling down a little bit now that he's got the clean air running in. He was being harassed by Christopher Demerit a couple of laps ago, and that might be another motivation for him to get away.
Yeah, and basically every time we confuse Tim Doyle and Tim Holgate, ladies and gentlemen, please take a swig of your non-alcoholic drink. The same way, apparently, every time I say the word gaggle, you must do exactly the same. We can have fun here on Race Sport TV. It's okay. We're not like the worldwide leader. We know how to do a decent broadcast. Holgate from Pawelski, from Demerit, from Walters, from Doyle. They are your top 5 right now. Down towards turn number 1. They come once again. Your top 10. Interesting fact, separated right now by 5.8 seconds. You can see that Holgate is getting closer and closer and closer to that gaggle of lap cars. Yep, you're allowed to have a swig. As here is Niles Anders. He's working right now along with Adam Dock and Terry Matinton in that battle for P11, 12, 13 on track. And Niles Anders will look down to the inside and he will complete the pass, moving himself up to the 11th position. But here comes Pawelski. This is going to be an interesting one for Pawelski because he actually, in my opinion, wants to be the first person. He wants to, Aaron, be that hot knife through butter. He doesn't want to be the person that ends up having to run into someone. He wants to be the person that can dictate the pace as they move themselves amongst that lap traffic.
That is correct, as Demerit's going to go for second to the inside of Holgate. Holgate's now looking on the outside of Pawelski. That's really not going to work, but when you are the leader, you do dictate the pace. Also, lap cars have a tendency of letting the leader by, but they just sort of forget about the second, third, and places on back. So you really want to be the first one, as Holgate's going to go to the inside, and he once again is going to retake the lead. So really, musical chairs up for the top 3, going back and forth. Bradley Walters just clinging to the draft in 4th, and that's really gonna eventually help Doyle and company, because there's now really an intermediary between the front pack and the second pack, as we're getting within about 7 to 10 laps to their second round of pit stops.
Yep, it will happen soon, but this traffic will likely be lapped before then. Just give me an update. 40.5 is the lap time that Tim Holgate's doing. It's 40.9 that Jack Turner is doing. So it seems to be as if it's taken them forever to close down. Like last time by, it was a 40.6 for Turner and a 40.2 for Tim Holgate. So they are closing, but at a rate of 0.4 of a second a lap. Whilst we have a moment, Martin Nagel-Kirken battling it out with Vic Cordell. This is a P number 19, P20 on track. And just thinking out loud here, Paul, what you don't want to have is the likes of Holgate coming up towards this lap traffic just as they have to come on towards pit road. And basically, if you have lap traffic and you have lead lap traffic come on at the same time, that's when it gets very scary into the pits. As Holgate is now past and actually gets a buffer over Turner. Turner pushes very high into turn number 1 to allow Pawelski to go past. You never want to be that car having to push high in turn number 1 for the sake of pushing high. But Turner looks as though he's allowed a good 3 car through without any issues.
Turner driving very smart here, but you have to be extremely careful. You know, there are marbles on this track, and Darby Monsters up there is, as many a driver can tell you. You get a little too far up into that gray area, and suddenly that car just stops turning. And, you know, you will hit something eventually, and it'll be a wall. But these guys have to be very, very careful letting traffic through in the turns, because, and it looks like exactly what I'm talking about is Henrique gets way up into the groove, out of the groove rather, and slows Pawelski down.
Yeah, as once again,
and into the wall he goes.
Oh, and he's trouble on the racetrack. This will be our first caution. We are under caution as the track is blocked there, center of the racetrack. Henrique is out, and that is the drama of lap traffic. We are under caution here. at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Replay is up for you now as we're going to ride it first on board there with that number 39 car. You can see all the way into the grey, and I want to see if we can just slow it down right here. You're in the grey. This is a bit like Simpson earlier on. And once you have that car, it just doesn't want to turn. You're in the marbles. You can't get an apex and bump into the wall. And from then on in, that car's going to spear across. And look how close he was to clipping Matt Pawelski there. We're going to get ourselves a second look from on board of Matt Pawelski in a moment. Backwards into the tyre barrier, spinning him back across the front of the racetrack. And ladies and gentlemen, it is our first caution of the day. We're going to get ourselves one very quick look before we go down on towards pit road. This is going to be with Matt Pawelski. We're going to get a look from the rear because, Paul, that was so close to Pawelski being out of the championship.
Pawelski, and that whole thing probably happened in slow motion in his brain. Just everything you've worked for could just go away in a quarter of an inch. Pawelski's heart rate probably still up in the 300 level. Head's going to explode. Really just needs to take a deep breath here. Concentrate on the stop. You dodged a bullet. And, I mean, that's how racing goes around here. But, you know, we were talking about Ebo and trying to let these guys by as we get into the pits here.
Yeah, it was half a car length. And thankfully also Christopher Demera didn't get involved in that one as well. Pawelski, all these drivers that are on towards pit road. We're going to get ourselves a look then. Here we are. We're on board with Pawelski. Tim Holgate is ahead of him. Everyone is coming down on towards pit road with the exception of one driver. That's Jack Turner, because of the fact he was, of course, put a lap down before pit stops came into play. So, don't forget, Bradley Walters has the pit stall at the very end of pit road. Pawelski is in. We've got ourselves Holgate in. Tim Doyle, Bradley Walters almost running into each other on pit road as Walters overshoots his pit stall. Now, who's going to be the first driver out? It's going to be Holgate ahead of Pawelski. Then we're going to have Demera. Then we're going to have Tim Doyle. I think Tim Doyle might just have beaten Demera off the pit road there. But that is very close. We're thinking we're getting confirmation. Indeed, Doyle did just beat Demera off pit road. But that was a very, very interesting pit sequence there, Aaron.
Absolutely. And Doyle, very good move. He's going to move from 5th to 3rd. We'll see if he made an adjustment. His car has been in the draft, but later in the race, later in the run, he starts to fade back. He'll be starting 3rd. When we do get restarted, we'll see if Holgate wants to keep the lead or if maybe he'll let Pawelski lead. But, we're going to have an interesting sequence there. And for Pawelski, if he was focused on the car in front of him, if I'm his spotter, I'm not going to tell him just how close that spinning car was.
Oh, no. You know you dodged the bullet. You can feel you dodged the bullet. That is all you need to know. We're under caution here, ladies and gentlemen, at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Tim Holgate leads then. As, well, we're past 1/4 distance. Lap number 57 of 200 will be score complete this time by. We're going to have ourselves Jack Turner coming towards pit road. We're going to go side by side. We'll be back in one brief moment. Well, don't forget, you can buy the Nürburgring right now. Back for the restart here on Racesport TV and on IndyCar.com. It's Holgate from Pawelski, from Doyle, Demerit and Esparti. The green flag's back out. You can see the weaving. Cautions can breed cautions. And single file restarts always make things interesting. Back down into one. There's the side-by-side action. That is the Verizon car, I believe, of Joe Bryant going side-by-side with Niles Anders in towards turn one. Joe Bryant will win that battle pool.
And trying to jockey for position early. Looks like Niles is not going to have any part of it. He's going to make a try on Joe Branch again. Thinks better of it, tucks in behind. Lots of dicing behind here, though. Looks like maybe that's Krosno and, or rather, who is that, Tinson and Eric Davis?
Yep, it is actually. Terry Tinson, Eric Davis, Gary Borkenhagen there in the mix as well. Borkenhagen in the 099 machine, currently in P at number 14. We had a car there. Just flash on my timing and scoring machines. That's the reason why we're 3 wide almost down towards turn one. Trost versus Doyle versus Esparti in towards one. And here's the issue. You run 2 wide in towards turn one, it'll cost you 4 tenths per second. That's what's happened with Brandon Trost and Osman Esparti there. They're now 8 tenths per second back from Demerit. In fact, they're a second back as Esparti will go down to the inside. You can't go side by side into 3 guys. You'll lose yourself the draft. But they are content on fighting right now. And that gap is 1.1 seconds. Let's see what will happen as they come down towards turn one again. Will they decide to slot into line? Or will... No, Brandon Trost is going to go back to the inside. No love lost between these two teams. But they need to find one dance partner and work together, not against each other, because Aaron, it's only lap 62 here.
And up front, they've been also changing Pawelski and Holgate, but they've been doing it almost a little bit of co-opetition. They're leapfrogging on the straightaway and going single file.
Big trouble. And that is Gary Borkenhagen. We are getting word. Yes, it is there. As Gary Borkenhagen, Terry Mattinson, horrific lock at Indy will continue once again. Let's get ourselves a second look at that one. As it was off of turn number 2 again. Our second turn 2 victim of the day. Slowing it down then. The and one designed super slow-mo replay. And that's going to be a big one, Paul.
Yeah, it looks like actually they got through the corner okay, but then it looks like maybe Terry, I'm not sure what happened here. Terry came down a little bit, Gary came up a little bit. I think there was a little bit of a situational awareness issue there, and they just made a little bit of contact, and both of them go spinning off into the wall. Saw contact between a couple other cars too. I'm trying to figure out who that is. Looks like Vic Caudell and Martin Nykirk both clipped the grass a little bit. Both the cars caught air, and that could do significant damage to the car.
Yeah, we're just having a look there, and this is on board with the driver of Martin Nagel-Kirken. There's Vic Caudell ahead, and they can see the car upside down of Gary Borkenhagen. We're going to run this in real time. There you can see car just having to flick into the air. Now, was it at the end of the All-Star race in NASCAR at Charlotte a couple of years ago? Well, the winner, was it Denny Hamlin who did that? I don't watch NASCAR that much. But they had it where they caught a grate and basically the car flipped into the air and destroyed itself. Pretty much it's exactly the same as if you go from asphalt to grass at that point of IMS. Here's the situation. Sorry, I said IMS. Here's the situation, Paul. How many people's going to come in? How many people's dumming? We've seen a couple of dummies. Will anyone come in and top off? I think it's going to be a Pied Piper moment. Yep, here we are, half the field then, Paul, doing the Pied Piper game.
Yep, Adam Dock leading the charge for the back half of the field, getting in for gas. And this is a tactical move. Even though you're only going to take on maybe a gallon or two makes a big difference when you're sitting still in the pits during a green flag stop. So a little bit of split strategy finally happening here in this first half of the race. And we'll have to see how this goes.
Now, the first driver listed as being in is Paul Jennings, but we've got a couple of people that's just come out of pit road. Jim McClure, we know, was just in. Joe Flanagan in as well. He was one of the Pied Pipers, and it was Adam Dock, we believe, was the first driver off of pit road. There you can see him. In the number 31 for a racing car, Joe Flanagan. Then second off pit road, then it is Jim McClure. Then it's Vic Caudell, of course, just getting that car checked out. Tim Miller in the number 91 car, and then Paul Jennings all coming out of pit road, as is Dan Liench and Donald Strout. Now, I like that for these drivers there, Aaron, and here's the reason why. Because if you're down the second half of the field, you've got nothing to lose. If it comes down to a final run to the flag from here, one or two of these drivers might just be able to make it. But at the same time, you've got to remember that you don't lose a lap by pitting, especially for a dash here at Indianapolis.
So whatever strategy they choose, and if you do want to be on the fuel strategy, as I believe we are going to be coming to 1 to green, you got to pit this time as well. If you're going to be on this strategy, pit this time. Yeah, you get about 3 laps to yellow, 3 yellow laps equal 1 green lap, but you should pit this time. If you're in the back of the train, pit this time. We went green from this point last year all the way to the finish. That just a little bit of fuel can be the difference, and we'll see if anybody is going to heed my word as the statistician, but right now, Danley Inch looks to be the only one that's going to do it.
Danley.
Yeah, because of course that is the driver of Jack Turner coming in. Of course, he's a lap down, so he knows that he can't get himself back into the lead lap through the wave around, so he's going to come in and top off as well. That's a good strategy, of course. We can all remember Jacques Villeneuve back in 1995 coming down from 2 laps down to win the Indy 500, potentially one of the greatest comebacks in the history of this almost 100 edition event. Tim Holgate leads from Matt Pawelski, then Christopher Demerit in 3rd, Brandon Trost in 4th, Austin Esparti in 5th, Tim Doyle 6th, then Bradley Walters, Randy Cosno, Christine Steele, Niles Anders will round out your top 10. Brian Simpson, Enrique Ebo, Terry Mattinson, Gary Borgenhagen are all classified as out of the event. We have ourselves 1 driver, 1 lap down, that is Jack Turner. 24 of the 29 starters are still classified on the lead lap, with 65 laps going to be scored complete next time by. Ladies and gentlemen, don't forget the iRacing.com World Championship Grand Prix Series will return to Racebot TV. That will start in March. Also, the Blancpain World Championship GT Series, that starts in April. That will be on Racebot TV, streaming live also on iRacing Live. Confirmed today, not 1, but 2 World Championship Series on the world's greatest sim racing broadcaster. That is Racebot TV. Pace car, gotta make that nice little turn down and towards pit road. Putting the field back in the command of the driver of Tim Holgate. As Aaron, it's time to go back to green flag racing.
Yep, and the green is back in the air, and what we want to see on this restart, will Pawelski and Holgate continue to really leapfrog, and can Trost and Esparti figure it out and not fight as hard through the corners and be part of the top 5?
Yeah, and it was a bit of a free pass, if anything, for the likes of Trost and Esparti and Doyle, because of the fact that they've now had the chance to get themselves back into the game. Pawelski goes down to the inside. You almost had Demerit thinking about going free wide. It's going to be 3 places almost shuffled back there for Tim Holgate. They head themselves through turn number 3. Holgate is on the outside line through turn number 4, and he's having to hold on, but be able to find a lane down in towards turn number 1. He's going to look back down to the inside of Demerit. Back down to the inside of Pawelski. 2 for 1 special. It's like a Golden Corral moment there, Paul.
And Tim Doyle, there you go, have a drink. Tim Holgate having none of being put down by that. And he had a big jump, and here comes Esparti or Pawelski again. But Tim Holgate had at least a second jump on him at the start, none of it. And you're going to see this become a huge factor later on in the race, that massive draft down that front stretch. And these guys are just going to be just leapfrogging each other the entire time towards the end of the race. I'm looking forward to a very, very exciting contest here.
The high side going to work. Outside. Let's see, is it going to work in towards turn 1? Oh, you see, that time Pawelski gave him the line. We're not going to find that answer out until lap number 199. Let's be honest, this game is a bit like poker. Down in the pack, by the way, 7 attempts for second between Tim Doyle and Randy Cosno. Cosno leads his second pack. Niles Anders, Bradley Walters, Drew Branch, Christine Steele, Eric Davis, Dave Jinks, all in that mix. Jinx side by side right now with Eric Davis, as also we just had ourselves Bradley Walters. And sorry, that was Randy Cosno and Niles Anders going side by side. Now Walters down to the inside of Cosno. Cosno started this race here today not too badly. He's down 1 position from where he started today's event. So Krosno looking to try and break that curse of what has been his 16 Street Racing League season, Paul.
Yeah, Krosno always finding himself in the wrong place at the wrong time. And at the beginning of this particular stint, he did get kind of pushed out to the outside. Very smartly, just let some guys go, find himself a rhythm, and fall back into line here. So he's back where he needs to be, up behind Niles here. Going to try and make a move towards the cars in front of him and get moving towards that front pack. But Randy here, he's got a lot to prove to himself, and he's a very accomplished, excellent driver. He's very quick. But he just has this horrible stint of luck here, kind of like me. In fact, here he comes taking on, just a bit out. Oh, and he touches.
Trouble.
Oh, we talked about him, and look at the smoke there. 3rd caution of the day. Randy Krosno is out of the 16th Street League Indy 500. Bradley Walters as well. Replay of that one coming up. There's smoke and mirrors all over the place. Let's get ourselves a second look, and this is actually with Eric Davis. We need to look for Randy Krosno. He's fallen away from our timing and scoring, so we can see him down in towards turn 1. Let's slow it down, talk you through it. Down in towards that first corner. Krosno it's one of those racing incidents, I think, coming down in towards turn number 1. It's mighty close there, but yet we're going to have to call that one a racing incident. Is that Nars Anderson, number 99, Quaker State car as well? Nars Anderson has never had good luck at this racetrack. Anders into the wall, Krosno into the wall there. So, well, we've lost ourselves another couple of drivers. Bradley Walters, you can see him as well. Smoke all the way through turn. I'll tell you one thing, Aaron. I'm surprised we didn't lose more drivers than that.
Very heads-up driving, and Krosno, when he entered the corner, he knew he was in trouble. He got off the gas, but once you commit to that inside, when you lift off the gas, that really, you're in trouble, and you really can't do anything about it. Once you commit, you can lift all you want, but once it starts pushing, there's not much that can be done, and as you said, truly a racing incident, but heads-up driving. A lot of drivers went well below the white line to avoid that incident. And that just shows the heads-up driving that we've seen here today, that we've only had our 3rd caution now. And unfortunately for Krosno, it seems 16th Street and Krosno just oil and water.
Yep. There we can see then. Drivers under their 3rd caution of the day. Now this is going to be fascinating. 71 200. Is it going to be a dummy and a fake as they come down on towards pit road? Well, Holgate's going to come in. They're past the commit cone. Yep. They're pretty much all going to come in then. Let's have a look. As we're going to have 1 or 2 people not come in.
Nagelkirchen.
Yep, that's Nagelkirchen there. He wants a bit of glory for a moment. So let's have a look as they come down. Past the Yard of Bricks. There is Martin Nagelkirchen. He would like the race lead. Thank you very much. Here's Tim Holgate. This is going to be, don't forget, a bit of a splash and dash. So let's have a look from up above. And you can see as we will turn that camera around and we'll zoom it on in. Out first is Holgate once again. Holgate's just been fantastic on pit road. 3 wide out of pit road there.
Very close there. Yeah, you really do not want to make contact on exit. So that was a moment for Doyle, Trost, and Espetin not to make contact. Some synchronized pit exiting right there.
Yeah, let's going to get ourselves a second look of that one. This is Tim Doyle's pit stop. You see as he heads himself down into his pit box, nicely onto the air jacks. And then he gets himself some fresh tyres, going to top himself up with Sunoco fuel. But this is the fascinating bit. You can see 1, 2, 3 wides they come out of pit road. And the bump there, I mean, by that point they didn't have to race for it. But you can just see, you've talked about that bump beforehand. But Brown and Trost, you can just see from that angle just how abrasive it can be at times.
Yeah, you don't have to be on the gas there, but I think he realized he was 3 wide and he wanted to get out of there as quickly as he could because it really narrows up there as you do have the road course and part of the MotoGP track there with the grass, and he didn't want to be in a 3 wide situation where that car on the inside does not want to go into the grass and catch his rear. Michael Peters also stayed out, but the one person that really doesn't like Martin Nagelkirchen right now is Jack Turner. Had Nagelkirchen stay pitted, Jack Turner would have got the wave around, but Turner gonna be a lap down.
Yeah, and he's going to come back on towards pit road to top off on fuel as well. Whilst we have the opportunity, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to step aside for just a couple of seconds. We shall be right back. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. There you can see Martin Nagel-Kirken has the lead of this motor race, but behind you can see Michael Peters. He also stayed out. Then the drivers that came in was pretty much the rest of the field. Tim Holgate, Matt Pawelski, Brandon Trost, they are your top 5. Paul, this is the first time that we're going to have pitting and non-pitting guys at the front of the field. Nagel-Kirken and Peters both need to make sure they don't spin their tyres and they get some heat, get some momentum as they go down into turn number 1.
Absolutely. Now, of course, Nagel-Kirken and Peters both going to be a little bit lighter on fuel, but a little more wear on the tires. And as you cycle heat and cool into these tires, they become a little bit more slippery. So, be interesting to see how they hold up against the front runners who are on full fuel and tires. Of course, again, I don't think they're going to find themselves getting anywhere farther away. This is a move just to try and stay in the front of the group. Nagel-Kirken and Peters both gambling that there's going to be another yellow really quick here, and everyone's going to have to cycle in.
Well, here we are, ladies and gentlemen. Restart is pending here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Lights are off on top of the iRacing.com. First safety car, Martin Nagel-Kirken. Let's have a look from his rear then. That pace car's in. Any time he wants, he can accelerate. Now he does so. Green flag back in the air. Nagel-Kirken leads, and he gets himself a good jump over Peters, a good jump over Holgate. This is actually what this field wanted in towards 1, and you can see Holgate already down to the inside of Peters. These two are teammates, and they'll know how to work together, but that was nice, that was easy, that was complete for Holgate. Can Pawelski do the same down the back straight away? We would expect to do so, and this is sometimes the question, Aaron. Why stay out when your car isn't necessarily the fastest? Because you fall back down, you lose so much track position so quickly. But it looks like it's taken at least 2 corners for Pawelski to find a way near to Michael Peters. Holgate, though, like a hot knife through butter, we said that phrase already, we'll say it again, is past Nagel-Kirken, and now Pawelski, being almost pushed there by Brandon Trost, finds himself past Michael Peters. Peters down into P number 5.
Well, if your car is, you might have a car that has some speed that if you can just get in the leader's draft, you're going to be able to hang there. So that might be one of the reasons why you would take that gamble. If you don't have the raw speed, sometimes you do want to mix it up. You're going to try things. This is a long enough race that, well, you can try things. Now, if we go caution-free, maybe it won't pay out, but if you've been hanging in the back the whole race, maybe try something different. And we'll see if, as well, for Nagel-Kirken, really hasn't fallen as fast back. He's running third, been able to hang off Trost as Pawelski goes back to the race lead. Expect that as Trost squeezes to the inside in 1. He may have it in 2. We've seen cars be able to maintain the outside, but that's been more in 4 due to the wind out of the north, so Trost to third.
Only for the time being, although Nagel-Kirken is just going to let him have it. For Nagel-Kirken, he wants to finish the 16th Street Racing League Indy 500, and he doesn't want aggressiveness to get into his way. Peters right now has Austin Esparti, Christopher DeMerit, and Tim Doyle for company as they head themselves 76 of 200 scored complete. We had fantastic pace at the start of this one, and then all of a sudden we had ourselves 3 cautions within the space of about 20 laps. So we had ourselves a warning for Tim Doyle, we believe. Paul, give us an update.
Actually, that warning was retracted after further review by race control. They decided that, in fact, Tim Doyle did not drive through pit boxes. However, the number 65 car of Eric Davis and number 76 car of Dave Jinks were given a yellow card for driving through pits. You're only authorized to drive through the pit previous to yours. If you drive through more than that, you can be penalized and possibly black flagged for that. So the rule is you cannot drive through more than the pit previous to yours. You have to pull in from the racing from the pit surface.
As they can see, Eric Davis, Banchiolo Sport number 65 machine past his own teammate Christian Steele down in towards turn 1. There is slicing, there is dicing. It's like a cocktail bar behind. Michael Chin, Paul Jennings, Vic Cordell, P13, 14, 15 on track. These guys are using every inch of the racetrack to set their passes up, to move down to the inside, try and run that high line. Michael Chin in that very famous red and white house-style livery. Got Paul Jennings just ahead of him. This is about for P number 13, 14 on track, Aaron.
It is, and in the tail of this train, Dave Jinks and Vic Caudill, I'm really expecting Vic to really make a run in the second half of this race. Vic, a very, oval expert as of the past season, so I'm kind of shocked to see him running 15th, but I expect to see some strategy plays out of him. Don't expect him to stay in the tail of this race for the duration.
Having ourselves a look then, they are your top 4 at the left-hand side of your screen. Right-hand side of your screen now towards the bottom of it, they are your second pack of drivers as they head themselves back down in towards 1. There's Tim Doyle looking down to the inside of Christopher Demerit in towards turn 1. He will get the line. He will just about be able to slide that on past. It puts Demerit on the high side, but it's okay. SPT doesn't have the momentum to find his way past just yet. Of the 29 drivers that started, 21 remain on the lead lap as we'll conclude lap number 80 in a moment's time. We're having a look at Michael Peters versus Christian Steele. Now, what do you think about this pit strategy here then for Michael Peters? Do you think it was worth it, Paul? Or do you think that Peters really has just blown an opportunity?
It remains to be seen. We'll have to see in the next probably dozen or so laps what happens with this race. If Peters can eke out a yellow out of this, perhaps it'll make a big difference for him. Again, with Nigelkerken too. You know, the play is to try and get towards the front of the field and hope that you can get back onto the leader. Oh, wow, and Nigelkerken had a big moment there and allows Demerit to try and get next to him. So Nigelkerken maybe having a car getting a little bit loose on him. But trying to get towards the front of the field, first of all, less cars in front of you, less possibility to get into trouble, but also it gets you in a good position if you can get back into the pit cycle of the leaders.
Well, there you can see Martin Nigelkerken in that number 82 car. He will have the number 144 machine of Christopher Demerit heading back down to his inside as they come in towards turn number 1. Gap between P3 and P4, currently half a second. So not yet into the we need to get moving mode. But Aaron, interesting to see how groups of people who aren't even teammates are working together for the greater good here.
Yeah, your friends are really dictated by where you are on the racetrack. One lap you can be friends, and the next lap, well, once you've achieved, it's really use them and lose them. Once they work with you to get up to the front, then you can just drive on by them, and that friendship is over as back up front, Pawelski's going for the lead. And I'd like to touch on Brandon Trost for a second. Past season, he's been a very, some drivers would say, aggressive. We're seeing him right now just content staying behind. We have not seen him make a move for second or first this race. Now, is this overcompensation for last year being short on fuel? So this year he's going to be really playing the fuel game, because we know Brandon Trost, his favorite place is up front. But today, I believe he has a car to win this race, but I don't think we've seen what his car is capable of yet, Will.
He started on the outside of row number 2. He's heading himself right now in towards a podium finish at the halfway point if it stays where it is. He is refusing to put himself into that battle out front. And Paul, you save a lot of fuel here if you know how to do so. The times here aren't that fast. 40.1's out front. Yeah, it's fast. It's not record speed here. These guys each know that they want to save a bit of gas, although that time by a bit of a wiggle by Pawelski in towards 3. We have got ourselves for the moment a 4-car breakaway though, and sometimes Trost and Demerit might think, wait a minute, I'll go on the noisy pedal just for a moment's time, just to increase that gap to the cars behind me, because actually it will help me out a little bit further on in this event.
Well, I think Brendan Trost is the catbird seat here. He is watching, and it appears to me as I've been watching Pawelski and Holgate working together, that they are employing a rather common NASCAR trick of leapfrogging each other. And by doing so, they actually end up faster up and down the track. You see here, Holgate gets the draft. He goes quickly past Pawelski. Pawelski stays close to his back, and as they go down the front stretch, they'll go ahead and leapfrog again as Pawelski gets that draft. All of this benefits Trost and Demerit because all they have to do is sit back and watch the show, just stay in the draft. But they get the advantage of having that big run. They get off the gas pedal a little bit. That saves a little bit of fuel. So they benefit from all of this. We've already seen Trost with a 3-lap advantage in the last pit stop. So this can only work into Trost's advantage if he can figure out how to make that fuel work towards the end.
Well, there you can see the gap, though, between Christopher Demera and Tim Doyle. It's in that 1.2, that 1.3 second range. And, well, Aaron, this is where you've got to be careful if you're Tim Doyle. You can't fuel save right now. Not when the gap is that big. You've got to carry on pushing. You've got to hope the guy is actually ahead of you. Stop working together for a moment.
Yeah, losing 0.3 of a second a lap right now. That is just going to keep growing and growing. That lap, though, a 40.23 for Doyle. The leaders, 40.23. So the bleeding has stopped, but you have to wonder if it's only been for a lap or so. The leapfrog didn't really work that previous lap for Holgate and Pawelski. Good thing for Doyle. SPT looks content. SPT, of course, running 6th right now. Seems content to help along, but as you said, well, your friends are where they are on the racetrack, and right now SPT would gain nothing by moving into that 5th spot. So they're trying to work together, but if the front 4 settle down or just one lap, it will only take one lap of this leapfrog to go wrong, where maybe they enter side by side. Will it happen this lap? No, it doesn't, as Pawelski does clear. Right now, 4 cars, 40.2 this previous lap for Doyle, leader 40.23. So a little bit of time gained, but we're only talking 100, so it would take right now
a while.
20 laps before he gets within that 1 second barrier.
And you know what the funny thing is? You have a pit stop before then where you can gain or lose 1.5 seconds very quickly.
Easy.
Now, down the field a little bit, we've been seeing here, like Dave Jinks and Michael Chin scrapping it out, and Paul, it's a slightly different story down here. These guys want the draft, they want someone putting them, but at the same time, they just want to tick the laps off. This is 88 or 200, a long way to go still. Some of these guys are just hoping, let's get me to 160. Then I'll really start thinking about the racing.
Well, when you're back here in this portion of the field, you're just biding your time at this point. You're trying to figure out the best way to make yourself available to the front of the field towards the second half of the race. You'll see a lot of drivers who end up towards the front of the field mired back here. I'm thinking Vic Caudill, just like Aaron was saying earlier. May just be cruising around back here. It's nice, it's quiet, nobody's giving you any trouble, you got a lot of space. Just kind of chill out, cool your jets, take care of the machine so that you have something at the end. I think that once you start seeing us in the second half of this race, you might see a little bit of a different attitude towards the mid-pack. But a lot of these guys just seem content to just kind of hang out back here and watch the time go by and wait for the second half.
Ladies and gentlemen, we continue here, of course, at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Here are your top 8 at the bottom of your screen. It's Pawelski, from Holgate, from Trost, Demera, Doyle, Espity, Nagelkirchen, and Branch. But there's still so much to go. We're only 45% of the way into this fantastic event. And don't forget, ladies and gentlemen, this is the first big Indy 500 of the year, but there's still the big one. It's going to happen around Memorial Day weekend, and it will be live on Racespot TV and on iRacing Live. The month of May, Aaron, it's getting closer, and whoever comes out of this race as champion will be the hot favourite when we get into the month of May.
And for the IndyCar drivers that do race on iRacing, they are already working towards that. This is, don't get me wrong, this race, very prestigious to win, but you can learn a lot. You're going to take notes from, okay, how many laps could we go? Where did I need to be? What worked? What didn't work? Do we need to change it up? So a lot of racing for a championship tonight, yes, but also note-taking. To be a championship caliber driver, you are always learning, and maybe that's sort of what Demera and Trost are doing right now, seeing if you let the other 2 cars in front really pull you along. How much can you save? If he can do 3 laps over 3 runs, that's 9 laps, or almost a third of a fuel run. So always learning. You can never, if you have the best setup, if you have the fastest car, if you just sit on it, well, come next week, you may not be the fastest anymore.
Don't forget, ladies and gentlemen, if you want live timing and scoring, you can find that by heading over to racebot.tv/timing. That is racebot.tv/time. I'll just leave that one at the bottom of the screen for you in case you want to know how your favourite driver is doing in tonight's event. And well, it's interesting to note though, actually, as we look at Racebot TV, live timing and scoring here, Paul, that we're getting ourselves closer to another series of green flag pit stops. 20 laps on these guys have done as a stint. Eric Davis has done 35 laps in this stint right now. 36 for Nagel Kirkin. And also you have a couple of other drivers in that 35 lap range. Yes, we had some caution, but they will be in very, very soon.
Yeah, within the next lap or so, I will imagine for Eric Davis and company who did not make those stops, I would expect that you'd see them in very quickly. And again, you're kind of you took a gamble by staying out, and you hope that it pays off. But if it does go green like this, well, now you're kind of on a different strategy. Now you're hoping the yellow doesn't come out. You want to get in the pits, you want to get out, you want everybody else to cycle through. Otherwise, if you end up making your stop and a yellow comes out, you're in deep trouble.
As we can actually see, Nagel Kirkin is on pit road. That is a wonderful on-board entry lap there for Martin Nagel Kirkin as he brings that car down in towards his pit box. Nicely in there, as of course we talked about the pit rules. You can't just drive yourself through pit road. Let's have a look at the pit stop time. 4 fresh Firestone Firehawk tyres, topping up with the virtual Sunoco race fuel. All of that is done in 10.6 seconds, Aaron.
Yeah, and I think that strategy for Nagel Kirkin is going to pay out in the end. He stayed within the top half of the field, so I really like that strategy call that he did. He was able to get the draft with the leaders. Now, as mentioned, you don't want a yellow to come out while you, let's see, he's in 2, leaders are in 2. Yeah, he is probably going to follow lap, so he is going to need to have this cycle through, which will. How many Indy 500s have we seen here where a yellow mid-cycle cost somebody the race?
Oh, it can be horrific. As you can see, he's lost 1, 2, 3 positions, but it'll be interesting to note the fact he's got, of course, the freshest tyres of the bunch now. There'll be some that says that he shouldn't race. There'll be others that will understand that, you know what, he is on his strategy, he's entitled to do so, but for the moment he remains 4th in line. Pawelski versus Holgate. If you're just joining us as we get ourselves closer to the halfway point in tonight's event, whoever finishes ahead of the other will win the championship so long as they finish inside the top 13 in the points. But the guy running in P3, he's the outsider. He has a chance to win the championship. He needs the 2 guys ahead of him to have issues. Here's the question, Paul. Are you going to be more aggressive on strategy as the race goes on, knowing the fact that you can take a double whammy away from people if you... Oh, caution is out on the track, and that is Jim McClure there. Is on pit road and out of the event, Paul.
And Jim McClure, looks like turn 2, the car was... Oh, man, that car started getting loose in the entry of turn 2. Jim chased the back end of that car all the way around the turn, and it just finally broke loose and just clouded into that inside wall where we've seen a bunch of people lose it. Turn 2 really just seems to be the danger zone today on this racetrack.
Yep, there you can see in the super slow-mo, 1 adjustment, a wiggle, a catch, a save, into the wall. Jim McClure out of the event, and that's Snake Pit Racing number 9 machine. So that's an interesting point, because we've seen a couple of Snake Pit cars have issues late on into a fuel run, Aaron, with their tyres. Less slip sliding around. And now we've had one of their team's drivers involved in an incident due to an unforced error due to tyres. That's going to be an interesting storyline as we'll be past the halfway point of this race when we go back to green.
Yeah, for back-to-back years, turn 2 is a trouble spot. Typically it's turn 1, but turn 2, tires. That's what we've seen. And also not much wind here today. Track temperature relatively cool, just 93 degrees, but that wind, you really catch it out of turn 2 as it's now shifted out of the south, and that may have been, we've had a northerly wind, now it's out of the south and the east as we have pit stops coming, and Nagel Kirkin will stay out, he'll get the wave around, so that strategy in the end was a bust.
Yeah, it didn't work out for him, and it's a huge shame, but at Indy sometimes you need to take risks, and of course Michael Peters in exactly the same situation. Jack Turner, at some point, he may well get his lap back. Who knows? We'll let you know. There are 1, 2, 3 in the championship. 1, 2, 3 in your shop. They'll peel off to the left-hand side in a moment. There we can see 1, 2, 3 into their pit boxes. Then who will win this race out of pit road? Well, the answer is going to be Brandon Trost is going to get it. Trost to the race lead.
There it is.
Then it's going to be Holgate. Then Pawelski. Then it's going to be Tim Doyle. So Brandon Trost there, short filling a little bit because, of course, he saved fuel during the stint pull. He's got the same amount of fuel as everyone else. He just has to put less in.
Same size tank, and that's exactly what we were talking about at the beginning of the race. It's not so much that you can stay on the track longer, it's that you stay in the pits less time. And this is exactly what Brendan Trost is trying to do when he's conserving fuel, is to get in the front. Now, of course, this strategy works out a heck of a lot better during green flag. So not as much of an advantage for Trost as you would have hoped, but he does find himself on the point for the start of the race, which, well, if you ask Tim Holgate, is not such a great place to be. But if he can pull that off again sometime during green flag racing, that is where that strategy pays off.
Indeed. Indeed. And now we can see that a couple of drivers are ahead of Brandon Trost on the track. And it's a great run there. And this is one of the storylines we need to keep an eye out on. We'll do a mid-race review in a moment. But there you can see Martin Nagel-Kurgan and Michael Peters. Both drivers will get the wave around, but they are scored one lap down. It'll be interesting to see. They will both take the wave around. They need to take the wave around. They cannot afford to stay one lap down. You can see they're just going to head themselves past the iRacing.com first safety car in just 1 moment's time. Jack Turner, ladies and gentlemen, yep, he remains 1 lap down. You can see him deep in the pack. You'll see him peel to the right-hand side in a moment, as well as Dan Lee Ench, who is topping off on fuel. We're going to have, basically, half the race to go when we come back to green flag racing, guys. And we essentially reset it now, because we're going to have full tanks of fuel. These guys are going to have to do 100 laps instead of 200. We've seen the strengths and weaknesses of all these drivers. You should pick the same. Oh,
I think so. I think I really like Holgate here. You know, the thing about, though, is Pawelski is not going away, and he won't go away. And he won't go away at all, ever, unless something bad happens. This is the glory of this particular race, is these guys are, you're not going to see a guy win by 3 seconds. You're not going to see a guy win by a half second. These guys are going to be all over each other like sheep suits. It is going to be a heck of a race, but I think that Holgate's been in this position a lot. He knows what to look for. He's an expert in this sort of stress and tension. I really have high hopes for him.
Aaron, any change?
I'm going to stick with Holgate as the champion, but I have really liked the strategy Brandon Trost has utilized. Doyle's car just falls away too much. Maybe he can make an adjustment, but right now, I really like what Brandon Trost is doing, and I think on this restart, you're going to see him fall back to 3rd or 4th relatively quickly, maybe by midway past the back straightaway. He wants no part of this race lead yet.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are gonna go back to green flag racing. Half of this race is scored complete. That means there's half of this race still to go. Who's gonna be? It's gonna be Trost, Holgate, or Pawelski, or Tim Doyle. Top 4 in the championship are in the top 4 in the race. Here we are, back to green flag racing. The second 250 miles of this fantastic event are now underway as we see in towards turn number 1. As they come behind the grandstands, it's Trost, then it's Holgate, then it's Pawelski, then it's Doyle, then it's Esparti, Demerit, Steele, Brandt, Stock, and Davies. They are your top 10. But Holgate is on the move.
And looks like
Doyle, 3 wide through the middle. Look at
this,
him
3
go.
wide. Brendan Trost was running a defensive line down there. Interesting tactic, considering I don't know that he really wanted the lead, but he was protecting that bottom line. But the net result, of course, that he's slower coming out of the corners. And the winner of all of this was Tim Doyle, and here he comes working on Holgate. But look at this. Here comes Trost again, 3 wide again down the front stretch.
Yeah, and the winner this time by well, Trost will have the inside line, but Tim Holgate round the outside will keep that race lead. Now we know Holgate's car is strong at the start of runs. We know Brandon Trost's car is better in the second part of a run. But we were thinking that actually after all this fuel saving, all this working in tandem, is Trost going to do the same again? Oh my word, that was close between Pawelski and Doyle into turn 3, Aaron.
Very close. Doyle had such a big run, which just made made Pawelski's run even greater. Pawelski now going to go to the inside. Doyle looks to the inside of Brandon Trost. Doyle maybe going for the lead in one. Holgate's going to have to give it. What a run. So I don't know if Tim Doyle heard me jump ship off of his pick, but all of a sudden, Tim Doyle has found another gear into the race lead, third to first, another 2-for-1 special. So right now, guys, I don't know where you want to be on this white flag.
You want to be in second into turn number 1. And I say second, essentially what you need to be doing is you need to be leading the race, coming to the white flag. You need to then be second coming out of turn number 1. That will give you the opportunity to go for victory. Pawelski's going to try and take 1, and then you can see they're going to go 2 wide, 2 deep in towards turn number 1. This is the Lara DW12 as we know and love it. They stay side by side though. This is Trost and Tim Doyle. These guys, don't forget, are battling out for 3rd place in the championship. In the second half of this race, we'll tell you what's at stake points-wise and prizes-wise here. For all of these drivers, all the situations, what is on offer. But, wow, this is a fantastic motor race. But we once again got about 10, 11, 12 people who's in this front pack ball.
This has got to be terrifying for Holgate Pawelski. In fact, Pawelski was up on the radio. I didn't catch what he was said, but it was probably something along the lines of knock it off. But these guys are just really dicing it up. We're on lap 105 of 200 laps. There's 95 laps left to go in this race. It's crazy out there already. I don't know what's going on, but it's exciting. And you ask, where do I want to be? Right here in the booth with you, Will. I don't know. I could handle this out on the track. Man, this is insane.
It's mansanity. Absolute mansanity. And if you have got a chinchilla yet, you can bring it in for free here on RaceSpot TV. Streaming live on iRacing Live and on IndyCar.com. Don't forget, you can get the write-up of this fantastic event on the Racer Magazine website within 48 hours of this event being scored complete in case you missed anything. Well, you remember 2009 at Homestead Miami Speedway, where sometimes the tortoise finishes ahead of the hare, Aaron. That's what happened with Dario Franchitti on that day. And I think it'll be interesting to see what happens if one of these drivers falls back, saves fuel, stay out of the way. We might see him at that 190 and think, oh my, where have they been?
Very, very good observation there. Right now, though, the biggest gap we've seen is Pawelski's going to go back to 3rd, it looks like. Trost now goes to the inside to sort of shake the draft to 3rd. That's an interesting move there. Pawelski's going to go to the inside. He's going to drift double. Very good lift there. That's what, if you are going to lift there, you have to lift before you realize you're in trouble. Pawelski did that. Had he drifted up just a little bit, well, then we'd have to get out the calculators, because then a whole different championship situation comes by. We said we would talk about it if it got crazy. Well, right now, where Trost and Doyle are, if it gets crazy behind them, they're in the best spot, because you never want to wish ill upon your competitors, but if 2 drivers were to fall out, Doyle and Trost would really like Pawelski and Holgate to have issues, as Holgate's going to get a 2-for-1 special once again to the inside, 3rd to 1st, Holgate to the point.
We need to get those moments sponsored by Golden Corral. I'm not going to lie to you, it's going to have to happen next season. But Holgate with the momentum off the corner. Now this is interesting. Let's have a look here at what Tim Doyle can do in towards turn number 3. He's not close enough. Yes, he is. Down to the inside. This is what I mean. You want to be second in towards turn number 1. If you can do that, then all of a sudden you've got yourself a chance to lead coming off of turn number 4. But then the drag race, who's going to have the momentum coming down past the yard of bricks? Well, you start thinking, actually, the guy 3rd in line may well be the best. And Paul, it will come down to timing and momentum. And how many times over the last 107 years have they said that at IMS?
And that is really the crux of it. We're watching 1st and 2nd. Do you want to be 1st or 2nd? No, man, I think you want to be 3rd, because we've seen numerous times where somebody's poked in and just bagged both of these guys right down the front stretch, and just the amount of momentum you get from that. But again, it's all about timing. In this kind of speeds and trying to make these kind of moves, you're talking about only about a half mile an hour. In fact, here we go with Trost doing exactly the same thing. Does he get both of them? No, not quite. Falls in behind Doyle, but you can see that car pushes wickedly on him as he gets into there. and he has to lift out of there. And, Aaron made a great point. He said this a couple of times. This track, if you commit to the corner and you get to a point where you realize you're in trouble, your dinner's already cooked. If you don't make your decision to lift before you're in the turn, there is many, many times nothing you can do. As Tim Holgate went way wide there, didn't feel like fighting with Pawelski at all, just went ahead and gave him that spot.
So here's the next question then, Aaron. If we put all of this together, what is the situation if on lap number 199, lap 200, if a guy tries to take two cars into turn one and it ends up being like what we see right now, with Pawelski on the inside not being able to clear that second car, do you think that's where the incident might be? The car brushing up from the inside line, causing the issue? Because that seems to be my biggest worry as we get closer to the end of this race, is that guy on the inside line, if they commit to try and take two cars and they can't, and they try and sweep out, it's game over.
Oh, and that is perfectly the right assessment, especially if the lead car, it's almost good that they're getting practice as will Trost get to it. Was there a little bit of contact there? That was very close between Trost and Doyle on the straightaway. Very, very close. Might have got away with one. You don't expect contact on a straightaway, but Pawelski pulls away by several car lengths. But it's good that we are getting practice on the passing two cars, because if that leader isn't prepared, they're watching just that first car, and out of nowhere comes this car two cars back to pass two. Now, if we get to the end and we are in a fresh tire situation, I just have to put that out there. Remember that Indy Lights finish from about 3 years ago? Do you want to be the fourth car in line?
And that's what happened on that day. It was fantastic. Carb Day, just a couple of years ago. If you haven't seen it, it is on the IndyCar YouTube page. It is not only one of the greatest open wheel finishes you will see, it's arguably one of the greatest finishes you will ever see at the Speedway. Now, one driver who unfortunately is out just a little bit too early is Snake Pit Racing's Jim McClure. We saw him involved in a solo car incident, back end stepping out in turn number 2. Jim, talk us through it, my friend. What happened?
Well, I had, we started that stint, and I noticed my car was, way looser than it had been all race. As we went along, I noticed I was half a second slower than I had been all race. I had somebody look at damage. Apparently, I picked something up going into the track, avoiding the previous incident. I was trying to slow down and get out of people's way. And, when you do that, sometimes it's the worst thing you can do, and it just snapped around on me.
Now, unfortunately, your season is over. Probably about 120 laps before you'd want it to be. And is that the pain of the Indy 500 being the last race of the season, that you've got no bounce back now until May because the biggest event concludes the season?
It's disappointing. You know me well enough, Will, to know that Indy's basically why I'm here. The other stuff's kind of secondary. I like the short tracks a lot, but I do it for fun. I start every race, remind myself that I'm here for fun. If I don't do that, I can get myself worked up a little bit. So I had a good time. I was just hanging back, trying to save fuel, not really race anybody. And one of these times I'm just going to go and drive because things seem to happen when you do that.
Well, of course, next time we'll likely see you will be around Memorial Day weekend when we come to the iRacing.com Indianapolis 500. Of course, we've seen you the last couple of seasons on that one. But before we let you go, Jim, anyone you want to give a shout out to from your Snake Pit Racing team?
Oh, I got to thank you guys for coming here and doing for this. Got to thank IndyCar for showcasing it. Brian Simpson and Michael Kitchell for making it happen. My teammates, Niles Anderson, Tim Holgate, Joe Branch, Shannon Caudill, Joe Flanagan, Tim Doyle. Great bunch of guys to work with. They do most of the work. And really all the guys that show up every week and have made this fun this year.
Jim McClure, unfortunately, one of the retirees. He will finish down in P number 21, and that's always the situation here, Aaron. You come out of the final race of the season, you're always looking forward to what's next, but when it's the biggest race of the year, you've got no bounce back now for 4 months. Drivers, they're already getting itchy. They're already thinking, okay, what can I do next time we come to Indy to make our race just that little bit better?
Yeah, there's no denying the sense of just that slight ejection in the voice there. And that's the thing. All season long, we said this when we started the season in Phoenix. Yeah, we have a championship. Yeah, there's all this. But everybody's looking forward to the final race, to the Indy 500. And when the next Indy 500, well, we've got the official iRacing Indy 500 coming up in 5 months, but that's 5 months. You had a chance to run it tonight, and when things don't go your way, it's deflating, it's dejecting. And for the drivers in the top 9 right now, the closer you get to the end, the more dejection you're going to have if you don't pull it off. But right now, there's 9 drivers that think can win this race.
Yeah, and there's 9 drivers separated by 1.5 seconds right now. You can see the standings bottom side of your screens. We have a look then from the rear of your race leader. It is Matt Pawelski, who has led 52 laps here today. Now, you want to know who's led laps? Well, Pawelski has so far led the most of them. Then Holgate has led 39. Tim Doyle has led 15. Brandon Trost has led 5. Then Demerit and Nagel Kirkin have each led 3 laps. So in terms of if we go down to plan scenario B, Paul, and we have to have a look at the likes of Trost versus the likes of Tim Doyle as to who's going to win this championship, bonus point will not be a factor as it stands.
As it stands, it does not appear so unless something radically changes. I think that's off the table at this point. So it's going to be won on points alone and not the bonuses. And, interesting to note, too, while we're watching this and they're settling in here, 1st through 9th, covered by less than 1.5 seconds at this point. Some names we haven't talked about: Joe Branch, Adam Dock, Christian Steele is 7th, 8th, and 9th. They're technically in the lead pack now. So interesting strategies playing out here.
Well, one thing to look for, every time through turn 1, Tim Doyle's car is not handling. He has to early entry. So as we've seen this race, as the run goes on, Doyle's car falls off. That's why we do have this really big log jam. His car is working everywhere except in turn 1. So you'll see as we come off turn 4, Pawelski leads. Doyle is going to really suck up. And if I'm Brandon Trost, I'm going to want to get around Doyle as fast as I can, because at some point in time, this accordion effect that we are seeing in turn 1, which we're going to see right here, Doyle slows up, and behind him, eventually one of these drivers are just not going to get ahead of that curve, where right now they've got the timing down, but Doyle's car is not liking turn 1 at all. And if I were any of the drivers behind him, well, if I'm Brandon Trost, I want to say field, but the risk right now is really great.
Yeah, and also, I don't want to be the driver behind anyone trying to overtake Tim Doyle in towards turn 1 in the event that Tim Doyle's car is not working well in that corner. Let's go then on board this time with Brandon Trost, and let's show you what this checkup situation is all about from on board here. Let's listen. You see, that was okay there for Brandon Trost. He didn't lose momentum, but he doesn't seem to have enough bump, Paul, to make it work out of 2 down this back straightaway.
Seems like the bite that was in the tires of Brandon Trost's car seems to have gone away a little bit, and now he may be having a little bit of an issue in the draft of Tim Doyle, trying to get that momentum and that run going. Looks like he might see how he gets out of turn 4 here, see if he can possibly get a run going. It does not look, well, maybe. He might take a bite at him right here. Nope, doesn't look like he's going to. Tim Doyle, again, it looks like, it does look like Aaron really did point this out. That car has gone evil. And this is kind of a problem for Tim Doyle because, well, 2 things. First of all, he may be inclined to try and push the car through 1, and that could spell disaster if he ends up getting too tight. And the second problem is, as Aaron had said, you get a log jam behind you, and you can see kind of that problem. It looks like SPT took over Holgate as a product of that. And right now there's enough room where that's not a problem, but it does interrupt the rhythm. And here comes Trost now. He's going to make it a shot. But no, he just can't get that momentum going.
It seems to be. I think that some of these drivers here have put some wing into their cars to work the middle stage of this event. They'll take it out once we get ourselves not past this pit stop, but a pit stop after that. Ladies and gentlemen, there you see on the left-hand side of your screen your biggest movers and shakers in the race so far. 124 laps going to be scored complete this time by. We're going to take your RaceSpot TV side by side. We'll be back in just a couple of moments. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. You never miss a moment of Racebot TV side by side. And there you can see Mud Nagel-Kirkin coming out of pit road, 9.9 second pit stop. And don't forget, if you're after live timing and scoring, you can head over to racebot.tv/timing to get that one up on your nice shiny computer monitors right about now. This part of the strategy is about track placement. Trost finally down to the inside of Tim Doyle into 3, gets the pass complete, but oh yeah, it's pit stop time, as these guys will be on pit road in the next 4 laps time. We've got one in already. That's Eric Davis, top end of your screen, on towards pit road. We've had a couple else as well. Michael Peters has just peeled off on towards pit road. He's come off the pit lane, but there you can see 3 drivers. Eric Davis. Also, you got yourself Dave Jinks on pit road, and I believe that is Joe Flanagan also on the lane as well. Matt Pawelski heading himself on towards pit road, this time by its Eric Davis overshoots. So here we go then. Pit stops are upon us, Paul.
And it looks like Brendan Trost has taken this opportunity to take the point, maybe to put himself in a position. Here comes Pawelski. He's alone. Nobody else is going with him. So Pawelski the first to blink, and Trost now on point. Tim Doyle behind him. Trost was working on that move for quite a while and finally decided to make that move. And right behind him now, Holgate's gotten around Doyle. So a couple of moves up front here. But we were talking about Trost getting frustrated. I think he finally had it.
So we can see Pawelski on towards pit road. I'm doing the math in my head here. These guys are doing 31 lap stints. Pawelski still needs to pit 2 more times, Aaron. Some of these other guys, they can do another 2-3 laps per stint. They're going to be very, very close at the end if this race goes green.
If it goes green, that's always the question, as we have another car peeling off onto pit road this time. Tim Doyle's going to be in, and we're going to have a lead change up front.
Yep, that is going to be Tim Holgate moving himself to the point. There you can see we've got a couple of cars on. Tim Doyle, Christian Steele, Vic Cordell, and Michael Chin all coming on towards pit road. There you can see Tim Doyle in the Snake Pit Racing car. He's going to peel to, well, your right-hand side now, come into his pit box. We've also got yourself a couple of other drivers there on pit road. One driver just overshoots there. I believe that's Christian Steele. We'll get his pit stop time in a moment, but Tim Doyle will be out and away very shortly. And that's a total time of 10.5 seconds, 10.9 for Steele, and it's 9.4 for Vic Cordell. As Trost, Holgate on pit road simultaneously. This is the gaggle of cars we really wanted to see, because this could well be the determining factor in tonight's event here, Aaron.
Yes, it can, and Brandon Trost, a 51.086 end lap that mirrors Doyle's, but Pawelski did a 52, so Pawelski was 1 second slower on pit entry. We will see how that pans out on the pit exit, but right now, as it stands, at least on the entry time, Pawelski could be the big loser here. We'll have to wait to see how it pans out. You do not want to come out 3 wide under green.
They come out just about single file, but it's going to be Trost ahead of Holgate. The situation is now, where will they come out in relation to their competition? We cycle the wonderful 360 camera back, and look at that. That's a great lead there for Trost and Holgate. Pawelski, for the time being, is going to be out of it. Even the momentum, he's not going to be close enough here to really gaining much. Brandon Trost versus Tim Holgate is a 2-horse race for the minute. It will close up as Holgate will now go down to the inside. He will take the race lead. Timing and scoring will update itself at the line. We're going to show you the gap is actually closer than what we thought. So it is still a 5-horse race. There we can see 8 tenths of a second really when all is said and done. As Holgate will move himself back to the front of the field. There you can see though, it realistically is about 8 tenths of a second separating your top 5 drivers. We still got ourselves a motor race here, Paul. Still got ourselves a motor race.
Absolutely, and at least one more stop to go here, and well, actually it's going to be maybe 2 stops. We'll have to see how this pans out. But you know, it looks like the big winner here looks like maybe Joe Branch and Adam Dock both got fantastic stops. Finds himself in the top 5 now, and here comes Holgate's going to take the lead off of Trost. Going to see a lot more to this dicing again. Seems like these guys get pretty dicey on the front in the front on those fresh tires. Want to take advantage of those early, get up towards the front, maybe get a little bit of that clean air. But again, Trost. let's see here, 10.9. So not quite the advantage we'd seen before. Trost burning more fuel this time around than he had lately. So maybe at this point, now that Trost is up towards front, maybe he's thrown away that fuel strategy and is just going for it.
Now here's the thing, Aaron. In almost any other series in the world, if I was to say that this is a fuel strategy race, half of our viewers will turn off. But here at Indy, in the Indy 500, fuel strategy is as much a thinking race as it is a racing race. As I swear, Joe Branch just got very sideways in turn one. He had to get out of the gas. And I think that all started because I saw a tiny bit of smoke there, Paul, from the car of Tim Holgate in towards one.
I want to go back and take a look at that and see what happened here. It looks like Holgate was way high, and the car did kind of jiggle a little bit, but I think Joe Branch caught the curb in turn one, and that kind of upset the car a little bit. Just kind of got the back end out, and Joe had to check up to get the car back under him. Not result, of course. Now he's back in fifth. Not quite out of touch yet, so no harm, no foul. He'll be able to get himself back into the fight.
Yeah, there we can see. Go on now.
We've got something happened to Tim Doyle. He is running 18th, one lap down, so something really went awry on Tim Doyle's car.
Yep, as it was a 19.4 second pit stop. We just caught the back end there of the slide of Joe Branch. He's back in the mix, by the way. Still got 5 drivers separated by absolutely nothing. But Tim Doyle, his last pit stop, 19.4 seconds. He's down in P number 18. He's 1 lap down. Penalty? We'll have a look back, but I've got a feeling it might be a penalty. I don't see any damage to that race car. We'll try and get ourselves a really nice quick look at it. Left-hand side looks completely fine. Right-hand side looks fine to me as well, but we'll get ourselves a proper look. We'll get you any updates as quickly as we can here on RaceSpot TV, but we'll let you know in just one moment's time. Give you an update, by the way. We have ourselves currently 17 drivers on the lead lap. Of those, Michael Peters is the last. Tim Doyle is 1 lap down. So this means that if there's an incident with Pawelski and with Holgate, Trost will be your champion if he wins this race and everyone else finish where they are. So there's one thing to bear in mind. But Holgate and Pawelski, 1 and 2 in the championship, 1 and 2 on the racetrack right now. Advantage Pawelski or advantage Holgate? It seems to swing around, and it will come down, in my opinion, Paul, to the fact that Holgate is better at the start of a run on his tyres.
Absolutely, but again, 1 pit stop left to go. The jury is out until these guys can accomplish that without any incident. Looks like Tim Holgate may have gotten a speeding penalty going into the pits. Didn't get it slowed down fast enough, so a couple of seconds extra in the pits, and that's what happened to Doyle. So Doyle is, I'm counting him, I believe, a lap down.
He is.
Bad day for Tim Doyle. Kind of really takes him out of contention at this point in the contest. So it really kind of comes down to whether or not Pawelski and Holgate can keep themselves clean. But if not, the guy who's really now reconsidering his lot in life is Brandon Trost. He really wants to see these two guys screw up and hit each other. But on the other hand, that happens. Look at how close he is. He could get caught up in it.
It was, Will. It wasn't on entry. It was on exit. These drivers try to time it. They have the pit speed limiter. He hit it just a little soon, and at the exit cones, he was at 64 miles an hour. Sometimes there's a wiggle room of 1 or 2 miles an hour. He hit it just a hair early, which shows you just how much time these drivers are trying to save. That just maybe 1 foot, just 1 foot separated him from a penalty or not. If you get a penalty on entry, it's a 15-second hold. If you get on exit, it's a come back in and then they hold you.
Yeah, it works out to be about a lap and a half, actually, when you put it all together. It is horrific. Trost is battling right now with Joe Branch, and I think that Joe Branch is in hurry-up mode, and Brandon Trost doesn't want to be for the time being. So just needing to just have a look there. A little bit further back, we've got 1.6 seconds between Christopher DeMerit, Christopher Steele, as Trost is thinking of going down to the inside, and he will go down to the inside, and he'll take the race lead. That's how you do it, Aaron.
That's exactly how you do it. And it seems everything we say tonight in terms of what strategy is going on, immediately they disprove it as he wasn't in hurry-up mode. He heard you say that, and all of a sudden it's like, no, well, got to prove you wrong. And here comes Joe Branch to the inside. We have not talked about him that much until you just mentioned him, Will. He's now on the final run of the podium, and as it stands right now, this is our biggest gap under green between our two championship contenders.
You know, I was going to say, too, Will, I don't think Brandon Trost wanted that. He was content to stay back there, and in fact, he had taken a line that suggested he was going to stay back there, but at the last moment, Pawelski slipped up in that turn. And again, we talked about momentum earlier, and Brandon Trost had really kind of no choice but to throw the car down there.
I completely agree, and I'll tell you what, anyone who watched Monday Night Skippies yesterday will know there was a little bit of an interesting, crazy strategy call that went on in the battle for the race lead. But the thing is, they have grass there. They can do these sort of things, mess around, especially when you've got that big long straightaway on the exit of Turn 7 at Road Atlanta. You can't do it at a 2.5 mile racetrack, which is encased with a safer barrier. It's interesting to note right now that all drivers from about P number 9 back are either running in 2-3 car groups or they are running solo. So that is why at this stage we're not really showing too much. We're focusing it out on front at these two battles. Christopher Steele, by the way, his group, the last couple of laps have been catching the group of Pawelski, Branch, Trost, Holgate and Doc. One thing to bear in mind, Aaron. Or Paul.
Okay, I'm bearing in mind. Go ahead.
Yes, so it's going to be interesting as we head ourselves now into this kind of final 50 laps. As here we have Joe Branch going to the race lead now for the first time here. So Joe Branch will lead this race for the first time. As we're getting to this stage of the race, if you're the front group, Aaron, do you want to work together with your top 5 and pull away from the second group? Or is it just going to be a game of, well, if it happens, it happens?
We've seen lap times. Pawelski's been running about 2/10 slower, so he came in 2 laps early the previous time, so you have to wonder if he needs to save that 1 or 2 extra laps. Also for Pawelski, his crew chief, you have to do some constructive criticism. He cannot afford 1 second slower on pit entry this next time, but so much for saving fuel. Here comes Pawelski back to the inside, back to the point in turn 1.
Yep, so there we are. Joe Branch will only be officially listed as having led 1 lap so far in today's event, but this is that second pack that we're talking about here, Paul. And it's interesting because you've got yourself my pick for the race, Christine Steele, very fast, and Austin Espartee, who's a bit of a wild card in this group of 3. But 3 different teams, all represented, and it's going to be fantastic to see whether they will continue to work together. The gap, 1 second right now, 2-3 more laps work of partnership, they can be back in this fight.
I think it's certainly they've realized that at this particular moment, it's best to be friends and try and catch back up to this group here. And as it is, they are 1.7 seconds behind. So not quite, the work's not quite done yet, but they are making headway here. And again, in a couple of laps, maybe they'll get themselves back into the mix here. At which point, I think that friendship will end and they'll get back to the dicing with each other. But watching Joe Branch here, you know, the lead, when he took the lead, he took that decisively. He was very quick. And it's not like where before we've seen where like Holgate will get in front of Pawelski and the next lap Pawelski will get in front of Holgate. Joe Branch has some speed in that car. He's made some adjustments and it looks like he's going to get overtaken here. And he is putting up the fight. He's already kind of testing that outside line. Joe kind of figuring out where the car performs on the track, what he can do to get himself set up for that last final stint, because it may well end up that your move might come from the outside.
Yep, it could come from the outside. It could come on the inside. It can come in turn 1, 2, 3, or 4. Pawelski versus Trost and Holgate. Close. Holgate right now is falling back a little bit.
Well, I don't think... we almost saw an incident there. I don't think Joe Branch knew that Brendan Trost was there. Joe went to turn in, and you saw he had to make a quick adjustment and almost got into Trost.
I agree. I think it's getting to that point now where these guys are looking forward and looking in their mirrors as much. But we need to remember here, Aaron, that they've got to get themselves still past the next pit stop at least before they really can start fighting and throwing the kitchen sink at the racetrack. But for the time being, let's calm it down a little bit. We've been caution-free for a long while now, and these guys are starting to get a little bit mentally fatigued. And we always see it in a big, long race like this. We always talk to the drivers. If it goes green, these guys probably hate it more than a race with caution to break it up because they cannot put a foot wrong at all.
And with the marbles, when the yellow comes out, the marbles, they do sweep them off. So the longer we run green, the more the gray area on the outside becomes just no man's land, as we saw a lap car have issues with that earlier in the race. So as this goes, the margin of error narrows and narrows and narrows as we now have 50 laps to go. And I think Holgate right now, going back to the Holgate Pawelski, the championship battle, I think right now he is content to run where he is. Pawelski's speed really has dropped about a tenth from what we saw him running this last stint. So I think he's up there saving fuel, and I think Holgate knows that. He needs to hit his fuel numbers as well. So right now, I don't think Holgate's panicking. As long as you're within 1 second of the lead, even with 3 laps to go, you still have a chance at this. And Holgate, I think, is right where he wants to be.
Vic Cordell battling it out and Martin Nagel-Kirkin. Anyone who's just joining us, Nagel-Kirkin did lead a couple of laps earlier on in this event, but he was very unfortunate with fuel strategy. He went off sequence, and then 2 laps after he came on pit road, there was a caution. He fell down a lap, got the wave around, and he's worked himself back up. And it's fascinating to look at some of these graphics here, Paul. He has been as low here today as P23, as high as P1, running right in the middle. P number 9 up 15 places from where he started.
And really, when you think about it, I mean, yeah, he's back in P9, and he's 5 seconds back from the group, or 6.5 seconds get back from the lead. But it's not horrible. It's not bad. Martin does have his lap back now. He was a lap down before. And really what Martin really kind of needs at this point is a yellow. He needs to be able to catch back up to that group. And I think if he does that, you've got Martin and Vic, and look who's right behind all of them, is Tim Doyle trying to make his way back up to the area where he can get in a position to get his lap back. So and of course Tim's going to need a lot more help than this. But a yellow flag changes the picture a lot for Martin and Vic.
We're just having a look there on board with Joe Branch. He tried to hold that inside line. He wasn't able to do the 2-for-1. He actually had to get way out the gas to Aaron, and that is what happened late on into run. But he's going to go back down to the inside of 1. He won't get the second one, but he is going to stay side by side. That car doesn't look as strong as others I've seen on the track at all on that inside line. Joe Branch is struggling on that inside line in that Snake Pit Racing car, and that was plain to see over the last 40 seconds on this racetrack.
Yeah, it doesn't get more apparent than that. Of course, the outside has been strong in 3 and 4 this whole race, but even still, Joe should have been able to complete that pass in turn 3. Might have been a little conservative, though. You really don't want to mess up a run 154 laps in. If you want to talk about dejection, doing a maneuver that puts you out of the race by trying to overtake for second when you really don't need to, that would be the definition of dejection right there. So maybe a little conservative, but and then again, the dirty air going to the inside, we've seen other cars stronger, so have to wonder if maybe the speed that we're seeing him have on the straightaway, if maybe they took a lot of wing out for this final quarter of the race.
Well, sometimes you want to take it out early, Paul, so you know what you need to readjust when you get to that final pit stop of the day. Talking of that, the stint laps are very, very interesting here. Pawelski was the first to come in. He has got 2 laps less fuel than his competition. Now, if that happens again, Pawelski definitely has to stop 2 more times. Trost, Branch, and Holgate, if they start really saving, might only need to do 1 more.
And that's a very valid concern. And I mean, Pawelski up on the front is doing that fuel number no favors at all. So he's really kind of banking on that. And here comes Joe again. Let's see if he can actually keep it down there this time. And it looks like it looks like Joe is just kind of feeling it out down there. He wants to see what the car does when he gets that bite on the bottom. He is able to hold that bottom line all the way around. Now, I'm not sure if he thinks that car might be getting a little bit loose on him. And that's why it's fighting it down there and keeping it low. It's kind of a dangerous game. Again, you kind of put the car down there, and the onus is on you to stay down there. You don't want to be drifting up. And if you do, obviously big trouble can happen. But Joe obviously gets the run, but he just can't keep the car down there. At least he's not comfortable doing so as of yet.
And, well, I don't know who would be more nervous in that situation, whether Brandon Trost, knowing that Joe's car is ill handling on the inside, or Tim Holgate, championship contender, who's getting a front row seat to that. I don't know who would be more nervous in that situation when they go side by side.
Indy, there's always a little bit of luck involved. There's always a little bit of track placement, especially when we come down to laps like this. As I say, these guys have about 10 laps maximum until they have to pit. It'll be fascinating to see how long the stint laps are.
Joe's in.
Oh wow, that's early. I mean, he would definitely have to pit twice now.
That might explain the speed.
Martin
you think that's
win.
a split strategy, knowing he has to pit? And there's a couple of people coming in, knowing the fact they have to pit twice more in this event, doing 2 short stints and hoping that without traffic they can just blitz some laps on fresh tires.
I would have to think so. Also, we didn't see this last year, but traditionally we get that yellow around lap 180, 185. We usually get a 10-lap shootout. So if the yellow falls right, fresh tires here do mean a lot. So if you can stay on the lead lap, I think if you know you're going to be short fill, get some speed, get up to where when you do make your pit stop, you are going to stay on the lead lap.
You know what? That's pretty much the entirety of the Banshee Aero X racing team that came onto pit road simultaneously. So this is a team strategy here, Paul. This is what they call in college football a designed play. And I'm interested. It seems interesting though that they've thrown pretty much all of their eggs in one basket. They've had Eric Davis, they've had Martin Nagel-Kirkian, they've had pretty much everyone but Christian Steele come onto pit road for that team. I'd expect them to have kept at least maybe one more person out to even that strategy from one way to the other. And Pawelski's in.
So this is very interesting. These guys. And Pawelski's. Whoa! Look out! What a save! But he may have been speeding. So we'll have to keep an eye on this. Pawelski crosses the cones at about a 45-degree angle, laying rubber down. We've got to see. Let's watch this stop. He may have sped.
And
I think
that
he got
would
it
be
down, but he locked the wheels up.
That would be overcompensation. I said his crew chief would say you can't afford to lose a second, but on top of that, you can't lose 15 with a penalty. Let's see what happens here.
Yeah, he's okay.
Oh.
Wow. That was close.
Well, you made the point early. Get the speeding penalty your first stop, not late in the race.
Oh, yeah. But there's still 40 laps of this event to go. A stint here is about 30. This is why these guys are doing shorter stops as well. You note the pit stop time for Matt Pawelski. It's only 8.9 seconds. Normally, these pit stops are about 10 and a half seconds. These guys are splitting this stint in half. There's about 20 laps of fuel on board that number 75 Broken Arrow car now. Knowing the fact he has to stop again, he's basically spreading the risk, as we call it in real estate terms. As Michael Chin is also on pit road. Holgate and Trost are doing the traditional strategy, Paul. Neither of them have come in yet, as Christian Steele does come in now. So that's all the Banshee Aero X team pretty much in now. They are on this alternate strategy. Broken Arrow are on the alternate strategy. Holgate and Trost, they're doing it the old-fashioned, simple way.
So I guess they're banking on the idea that it's going to go green all the way through. And it pays to notice, I mean, we are talking about now the 2 championship contenders on a split strategy. So this story becomes very, very interesting. And I can't wait to see how this is going to turn out.
It's going to be
out of the way in 8 seconds, by the way. Go ahead.
It could be as confusing as the final, really 12 laps of the 2011 Indy 500 on who had the fuel, Now another driver has the lead. Now another driver falls. We really could be seeing.
Bertrand Baguette almost won that race, you know.
Exactly. And that's the thing. You say his name. How many people really could recite that name? And Indy, as the intro to that race on ABC said, you're either first or forgotten. So close to racing immortality, and yet now just a footnote of leading some laps in the 190s. This strategy, whatever Holgate and Trost, and I think we're beyond that point, they're going to stick to that strategy. I don't know if that split strategy really is going to be the one that pays off. Of course, if our front 2 pit around lap 166, 67, it's going to be a stretch to see if they can make it to the end. If you slow down too much, like Kanaan at Pocono a couple years ago, you can't waffle on your strategy. Choose it, stick to it.
Yep, and that's been the history of Indy 500 past. I've seen a number of drivers, the likes of, for example, Matt Lambertson a couple of years ago, come to mind, where you start a strategy, you have to go through with it. In some cases, it'll come back to the end, not all the time. Now, Trost, I expect him in the next lap, because normally this is what he does, and guess what? He's coming in. is Tim Holgate. Holgate will stay out. So Brandon Trost comes in. That'll be 36 laps to go. He will have to pit again. He's got company on pit road. That is Adam Dock. So 2 drivers in at the same time. 2 teammates in at the same time then. Save fuel and tyres. They cannot make it to the end. Now the question becomes, can Holgate make it to the end without saving, or by saving a little, Paul?
So we've been seeing about 30 laps, well 32 if you stretch it, but 30 laps I think is what I calculated for fuel. Yeah, it's going to be awfully close. Here they come.
Top 3 in.
Yep, so here they are, then they're all coming in. Oh my word, that's Esparti!
Esparti almost clouded Holgate on the way in. Managed to miss him somehow. As Sir Jackie would say, a spectacular bit of driving.
I tell you what, that's now both of your championship contenders who have had themselves a near miss. Of course, the first caution of the day almost took out Matt Pawelski. Let's have a look at then Austin Esparti. We'll go on board with him. This is off turn number 4. This is what happens when you lock up the brakes, and look how close he gets to Holgate. He just misses him. That could have been Holgate's championship season done, but great recovery there by Austin Esparti not to run into the back of the driver of Tim Holgate. But I tell you one thing, we've still got a fantastic race to go. And here we can see Alpha Pit Road on board now with Holgate. There's Trost pass. There's the 31 machine of Adam Dock pass. But there's still a long way to go. Leading this event for the time being is Matt Pawelski. But here's the thing here, Aaron. 8.9 second stop for Pawelski. 10.9 second stop for Holgate. 4 seconds is the gap on the racetrack, but Pawelski has traffic to navigate.
Yes, he does, and it is a sizable gap now, but remember, when we get to the final pit stop, the front 3, let's see, we've got the front 3 are going to have to take more fuel, so this really could average out in the end, and all these split strategies as we come out of the final pit stop would be even keel, but the lap traffic's going to be important for Pawelski to navigate. This is the biggest lead of the race. He has Joe Branch behind him. And for Doc, Trost, and Demerit, well, Tim Holgate's thinking, okay, guys, play nice. Just stay in line. Draft. Don't mess around. We have to work together. If they start fighting for that first spot at the back 4, their strategy is not going to pay off.
That is one thing we're going to have to keep an eye out. The gap is about 4 seconds. We'll get confirmation of that up on your screen. From Brandon Trost in P5 to your race leader, Matt Pawelski, it is currently 4 seconds. Gap for the championship is 4.4 seconds. As Trost is going to look down to the inside, he will complete the pass then over Adam Dock in towards turn number 3. We expected that to be an easy pass. It was. Here's Tim Holgate. Tim Holgate currently runs in P number 7. His championship rival is leading. They are on 2 different strategies. This one will come together at about lap number 190. So we're 20 laps away, Paul, from Mansanity kicking in. But for now, Holgate has to ride, and I'll tell you one thing. A lap of fuel will be useful here.
Well, and again, we're assuming everything stays green. Things change. As soon as the yellow comes out, everything's out the window and it's back to a horse race. And, I mean, I'm watching... It looked like for a moment, and I'm not, wow.
I'm interrupting you here. This is fantastic. They are going so slowly right now.
Yes.
40.5 for Adam Dock, 40.5 for Demerit, 40.5 for Trost, and that's compared to a 40.1 for Joe Branch and Matt Pawelski. They've lost a second over the last couple of laps here, Aaron.
They're going for it. They are, they have committed early. If they get it, and I like this, as right now, I don't think they could have won it on speed. Christian Steele 2 laps ago ran a 39.7 with a full tank of fuel. They can't compete with that. Right now, their only option is to try to make it the rest of the way. And Tim Holgate, being the caboose of this train, is getting the maximum benefit. Now, if we get to the end and these 4 drivers can make it, you almost get a Tour de France type finish of who's going to be the first one to make that final sprint that can actually keep the energy up to the finish line. So, wow, 3 storylines here. And for Holgate, really the championship really might come down to just a few drops of gas Well, really, his championship is almost out of his hands right now.
Adam Dock seems to be the sacrificial lamb in all of this. 225 miles an hour in towards turn number 3 for Christopher Demera. Note that number down. We're going to compare it to the like of Christian Steele in about 20 seconds time. On board right now with Christian Steele. So he's doing 230 in turn number 1. We know that the speed between turn number 1 and 2 and turn number 3 and 4 can be different. Steele actually had to get right out the gas there. And these guys, of course, if they're on the fast and the slate strategy, they must commit 229 miles an hour. I tell you what, Steele there looked as though he was checking up a bit, and he's still 5 miles an hour faster in towards turn number 3. This is a strategy race here now, Paul.
This does sound like Adam Dock, Chris Merritt, and Brendan Trost and Holgate have all dialed the fuel back, and I think they are, as you said, they have committed to this. They are not going to make an effort to catch up. They are not going to try and make a run for it. They're going to try and get it done on fuel strategy. And I'm trying to do the math now. When did Tim Holgate stop?
We'll find out. We'll find out as quickly as we can. And this is an interesting one as well. Look at the gaps, especially look at the gap behind Tim Holgate. Look at where Austin Espartee is. There he is. 2 seconds is the gap. If Espartee catches up to the rear of these drivers, they're going to breeze past them. And it's going to be interesting to see what will happen over the course of the next 10 laps or so. We're going to take our last commercial of this event, ladies and gentlemen. Our last commercial before the checkers. Joe Branch leads. He's led 4 laps here today. He leads once again. Pawelski second. Steele in third. Then Dock, Demeritt, Trost, Holgate, Espartee, Nagel, Kirkin, and Cordell round out your top 10. But oh yeah, it's Indy and strategy is in play. We'll be back in a couple of moments' time.
Sunday, Sunday, Sunday. Prepare to get a roundhouse of awesome square in your face hold, because the 400 at the Brickyard is back at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. It's got real bricks made of tears. Nothing's more American than the Brickyard. Not even an eagle punching another eagle at a rodeo. Gordon, Stewart, Bush, Jr. What about Jimmy? Shut up! There's a bajillion drivers. How do they all fit on the track? Witness the insanity of men. Mensanity. 400 miles of mensanity. Multiplied by 200 miles per hour equals $30. Math sucks! Still don't have your tickets? Kids 12 and under get in free. Go to Chinchillas. Bring your chinchilla. It gets in free. You got toast? Bring it, because there's tons of jam at the Brickfest with Justin Moore, the band Perry, and Brantley Gilbert. He's hot. Who said that? Sunday, Sunday, Sunday. Rip open a NASCAR-sized can of purpose.
My life has meaning.
Chug it!
Get out of my way!
Here's your man card. It's a card made of real men. Bring it to the 400 at the Brickyard July 27th and give your prefrontal cortex a wedgie. Google it!
Simulated racing can be awesome, but it can also be kind of a free-for-all. Interestingly, auto racing faced the same problem in its earlier days. Whether it was on the back roads, the beaches, or the city streets, the racing was fun. But there was always a certain level of chaos and danger, until some folks came along and put some order to all of this. Stuff like official racetracks, regulations about weight and equipment, and enforcement of standards. That's what gave us high-speed excitement, fast-paced action, and photo finishes. That's when racing became racing. The guys over at iRacing.com have made the same transformation in the world of sim racing. Sure, they've got the most accurate tracks and realistic cars out there, but that's just the start. See, iRacing analyzes the performance and results of each driver in every race, so you can be sure you're always placed in races where the competition will be tight, and that those reckless drivers who ruin it for us all are kept in the pits. Not to mention that with over 45,000 active members already in their vast community, you can find races day and night, so you can always get in on the action. You can even join a league of your favorite series. And since updates are always automatic, you don't have to worry about software and can focus on the track. Zip up your fire suit and check out iRacing.com.
Stay tuned for the greatest spectacle in racing.
And then, ladies and gentlemen, there are 3. You saw it on Racebot TV side by side. Brandon Trost has scored a lap down. In fact, I'll take that back. We're down to 2. Because Brandon Trost, of course, has had a speeding penalty. Tim Doyle has had a speeding penalty. We are down to 2. Brandon Trost realized he couldn't commit to making that fast strategy work. And look at that, 28.4 seconds. That includes a 15-second stop and hold penalty. He's in P16, Tim Doyle's in P15 right now. But we've been talking a lot about this on air. And there is potentially a saving grace right now for Tim Holgate. And that is Tim Doyle. The fact that he is one place behind his teammate on the racetrack. He's a buffer, but he could well be a pick through the air if needed, Aaron.
Yeah, it might be, but I think what Trost pitting, what that showed us is he knew he couldn't make it. For Holgate and company, that back four, they sort of waffled. They were running 40.6s. Now they're running 40.4s. They've lost 3 seconds on the front three. You're not going to make up 8 seconds on a pit stop. So I think they waffled on their strategy. They realized it wasn't worth it. They weren't going to make it. So I think Holgate's championship, even if Doyle does help him, I think without the yellow flag, right now it's Pawelski's championship to lose.
So then, Paul, is it going to be a case of there being another twist in this plot? Because if they get a caution, then it's all on. We've got a car on towards pit road. We've got 2 cars on towards pit road. They are Vic Cordell, Danley Ench, Joe Flanagan's on pit road. RAP yellow cone. And Joe Branch is in. Sorry, take that back. Joe Branch is in. So, we talk about that half-split strategy. This is the interesting thing from now on in, Aaron, because that half-split strategy, they're due in the next 3 to 4 laps.
Well, and
yes,
Joe Branch,
Christian Steele just said that he'll be pitting next time. So, this split strategy is going to come in, which means if we do get a yellow and they stay on the lead lap, they will leapfrog. This all hinges on whether or not we get a yellow or not, but Pawelski and Steele, I believe, are coming in this time.
Yeah, so there's Joe Branch. There is Tim Holgate, just to let you know. He's not even through turn number 4 yet, Paul. Carry on.
So this could be a huge thing. If Tim Doyle gets his caution right now, this is going to be a huge, huge game changer for him.
So let's have a look then. We've got ourselves Matt Pawelski on pit road. This is lap number 182 then. Here he is on pit road. Christian Steele is in as well. 75 car. Don't mess up the pit stop. Don't speed on entry. Don't speed on exit. Get the fuel in. Get the tyres in. Get enough fuel in the tank. 8.8 seconds out and away. He's ahead of Steele on the exit of pit road. Make sure you don't speed. He was late there off the limiter for good reason. But Pawelski back out on track. Pawelski exiting turn number 1 into 2. Here is Tim Holgate past the start finish line. Wait for it. Now. So basically they've got themselves 30 seconds worth of fuel saving opportunities. But running 40.6s, here is the $64,000 question, Paul. Is it enough?
The big question indeed. Is it enough? And I'm looking at Tim Holgate. He's going backwards. I mean, he is sandbagging that thing now.
Well, remember, he doesn't need to win the race. He just needs to have enough fuel and speed to finish ahead of Pawelski. So he doesn't need to win. So all he needs to do is have enough fuel and enough roll to get across the line in front of Pawelski. Trost and Doyle, they've squandered their chances with speeding. So all he has to do is finish ahead. He's, as much as he wants to win the 500, championship's on the line. He just needs to keep track of Pawelski, keep track, and lose however much speed he needs to lose, divide it by the amount of laps, and try to hit that target.
And there's the thing as well. Because this is a 2-horse race now between Pawelski and Holgate, the situation is clear for that driver of both Matt Pawelski and also Tim Holgate. There's no need to worry anymore, Paul, about the likes of Tim Doyle and Brandon Trost. They are out of the running. They will not be a factor for the championship here tonight. We are down to 2 with 15 to go. Pawelski there just allowed Joe Branch to breeze past him on the exit of turn number 4. Want to keep an eye out on Pawelski for just a moment. Yeah, he's fine. He just got a great draft there, did Joe Branch. The gap though between Pawelski and Holgate, 23 seconds. It's less than that. It's about 22 seconds now. Oh, it's go time.
Well, unless you're Tim Holgate, in which time it's sandbag time.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm watching him. He's last lap 41.778. Next lap here, let's take a look. 41.3. So he's speeding up a little bit, but that's in comparison to driving a full speed lap at 40.1. And occasionally breaking into the 39s. Meanwhile, Matt Pawelski, 30.3 the last lap, and he may be trying. He might want to try and think about leapfrogging with Joe Branch, but there just is not enough time to do this. So all Tim Holgate has to do is get across that yard of bricks on the 500th mile, and he's in. And look at, here's the thing about it too. You've been driving at a race pace for so long during this race. This is where you can start making mistakes. You never set your car up to do 218 miles an hour around the track. The car handles very, very different when you're not at speed. So Tim needs to be extremely careful. He's a test pilot at this point. I don't think he's ever tested the car at this speed. So all of a sudden now it's driving radically different. You may find yourself with a car that's extremely difficult to handle.
Martin Nagel-Kirkin is in. He's out and away, 6.6 seconds. Just to let you guys know, there is a battle going on for the race lead. There's a car very high there off of turn number 4. That was the driver of Adam Dock. He almost did a Thomas Schechter there. He got the heart of pumping for a couple of these drivers. But Adam Dock leads this motor race right now. Christopher Demerit is right behind him in second. One of these two drivers are likely to pit at some point soon, if I'm correct here, Aaron. They still have to come in and make one more stop, I think.
Yeah, that sounds about right. And Vic Caudell not going down without a fight. Staying on the lead lap right now is very critical, especially when you know the two cars behind you have to pit. You go a lap down and, well, we've seen a couple drivers get a lap down, not get it back. And I'm sure everybody watching, when you raised your voice with the car high, many of our viewers probably were hoping that the yellow would come out, but for some drivers, they'd like that. Other drivers, not so much. But right now, it's really hard to say who's going to win this race. We really do have a 2011 situation going on right now.
Right, two things I want to tell the viewers very quickly. Number one, if a caution comes out from lap number 196 onward, it's game over. The race is over. We've never had a big race Indy 500 finish under caution, however. So bear that one in mind. Next, we've got ourselves a situation where some of these drivers only have to take themselves fuel at the end of this event. They won't need to take themselves some tyres. There's a lot of story still to go on here. A lot of action still to go on. Here's the most interesting point of the lot though, Paul. We only have ourselves 10 drivers on the lead lap. If we get ourselves a 5-lap restart, you can go from 10th to 1st. We've seen it before, especially if you're at the rear of the pacing line. You take tyres, other people don't. It's go time. Really go time.
And we've seen with these restarts that new tires, you're Superman for about 4 or 5 laps. So it's very, very possible that you can find yourself making real good headway. And Adam Dock, I just watched Adam Dock. He got very, very high, almost clouded the turn 3 wall. And so Adam Dock still trying to work over Vic. Vic is not going down without a fight. He wants to stay on that lead lap, and for good reason.
Okay, here's the situation. We have got ourselves 10 laps to go. Last time by, Pawelski 1.4 seconds ahead of, 1.4 seconds faster than Tim Holgate. However, Holgate's got a 15-second advantage. Michael Chin is on pit road. There you can see him in the number 35 car. He is out and away. Total time 7.4 seconds. Dock versus Demerit. We believe they have to come on towards pit road. This is essentially a battle between Holgate and Pawelski for the win and for the championship.
Tim Doyle just had a 4-wheel drift in turn 4. That would have changed everything as he was on the inside of Demerit trying to get up to get his lap back. He got 2 tires on the rumble strips. Very close to losing the rear, so this race just about got turned on its head.
And you know that Snake Pit racing car struggles on old tires, Aaron.
And that's very much exactly what happened. Turned in just a little bit too hard, got on the flat, which he had to turn in because of the ill handling, the tightness of that car, got onto the flat. You don't really have that issue too often here at Indy to get that low, but he did a great save by Tim Doyle, and he by no means wants to be the yellow because he and Trost are in a battle for third, which the top 3 championship finishers do receive prizes in this series.
Indeed, so we'll talk about that one after the broadcast. We've been meaning to tell you for a while, but we never got around to it. Pawelski to Holgate. 12.3 seconds. There is the proof of the pudding. 12.3 seconds in about 8 laps to go. I tell you one thing, if we see some spotting, we'll have to be on board with Holgate for pretty much the entire final lap. Here's an interesting thing though, Trost is ahead right now on the racetrack of Holgate. Will Trost help out and be a bit of a factor in this one? It seems to be Trost is putting away too quickly. No, he won't. Gap is 11.5 seconds, and the lap time last time by for Holgate, 40.3 seconds. Was that draft pull? Was that Holgate realizing it's not enough? There are now 6 laps to go. 41.8 for Holgate last time by.
Holgate is just staring at that fuel like begging for it not to flick on, you know, and they're these cars are very precision in how much fuel. So Tim Holgate's getting updates every lap about what kind of fuel situation he's in. He's going to adjust.
Adam Dock's in.
Adam Dock is in the pits.
So here is Adam Dock then. We knew that he wouldn't have enough fuel. We expect Christopher DeMera on pit road next time by. So here we can see then Adam Dock is on pit road for his final time. Splashing dash, probably no tires here, Aaron.
Oh, no tires. Get about 3 seconds of fuel thereabouts and get right back at it. Waiting. There he goes. So we'll see where he slots in, but for Doc, that strategy not going to be the right one at the end of the day to win this.
42.4 seconds last time by there for Holgate. It was 2 seconds slower than Joe Branch. That is not enough. The gap 7.3 seconds. Holgate needs a little bit more. He needs to be 1.5 seconds a lap slower than Branch and Pawelski. No slower than that. We are down to 4 laps, 5 laps even to go in this event. 4.5 laps to go. We're on board with Demerit. Demerit, we've not talked about him for ages. Has he somehow found a way to save fuel, or will he be the Bertrand Baguette coming in right at the last moment? And you know, a driver coming in towards pit road right at the last moment, anything can happen. Holgate to Pawelski, 5.6 seconds. Demerit carries it on, but here is a race for a championship, Paul. Holgate's got to get moving. He's got to get moving now.
Well, I think Tim is in serious trouble here. He knows what he's got, and he knows that he in order to finish, he's got to maintain this pace. But Pawelski is closing that gap at a breakneck speed, 2 seconds a lap at least. Now, last lap, Tim for 42.088, but he can do no further. Tim's only saving grace is to finish this race under yellow.
A caution now ends the race. Simple as that. On board with Joe Branch in the number 28 Snake Pit Racing car. Out of turn number 2. Matt Pawelski, 2 tenths of a second ahead of Joe Branch. And you got Tim Holgate, 3.1 seconds, 3 seconds ahead of Matt Pawelski. Christopher Demerit.
Out of fuel.
Demerit's out of fuel. Yeah, he's out in turn number 1. He's out in turn number 1. So here we are then. It's a climatic finish. 3 laps to go in this event. On board with Tim Holgate, we cycle the camera around. Aaron, I've done many an Indy 500 review. We've never seen a conclusion as dramatic as this.
And
he's out. Oh no, take that back.
No,
carry on.
And that's just how much of a nail biter this is. Meanwhile, Branch and Pawelski go side by side, so the race is still in question. Demerit stays out. Demerit, did he shut his car off? Because he is maintaining 182 miles an hour.
He's still going. What's going on here with Demerit?
I think Demerit is limping.
Wow.
I think he's turned it on to the lowest fuel map, and he is limping around that track.
Have you ever seen a finish like this with 5 miles of this event to go? Anything can happen. And, well, that time by Holgate picked the speed up at 41.2 seconds stop. The gap is 1.1 seconds. There's 4 miles of this event to go. And, ladies and gentlemen, anything can happen from here on in. It's Demerit and Holgate! Holgate! Oh, my word!
Out of fuel.
It was a year ago. It was a year ago on lap 199 that Brandon Trost ran out. This year, the roles are reversed. Holgate's going to come up short. That's going to be the championship. Demerit's in. So now we have a battle for the win. It's going to be Pawelski and Branch and Steele going for the win. 1 lap to go, Will.
Here they come then in towards turn number 1. White flag out here in Indianapolis. And what a piece of cruel irony for Tim Holgate. Last year, he was the beneficiary. This year, he is the victim. Joe Branch is literally now half a lap away from winning his first big-time Indy 500, but Christian Steele wants to come to the party as well. Pawelski has slowed it down. He knows the championship is in hand, so it's a two-horse race. It's Branch, it's Steele. Out of the final corner, they come for the final time, heading themselves towards the line. Who's going to be the winner? At the stripe, Branch will get it. Joe Branch wins the Indy 500. The kid from Kokomo, Indiana will win. It will be Christian Steele in second and Matt Pawelski in the Rockstar Energy number 75 car is your 2015/16 Indy champion. The 16 Street Racing League Indy champion. He wins the championship as Tim Holgate loses it in the same way he won the Indy 500 1 year ago. You talk about drama, you talk about everything. Let's give ourselves a moment though to let the driver of the Verizon car, the guy from Indiana in the number 28 Snake Pit Racing car, come down. And this will be emotional for Joe Branch. He wins, Aaron, his first big time Indy 500 victory. And he's going to the same place where he sits at Indy in the month of May.
Branch has been a fierce competitor on here for many years. He's had some races where he almost won. Right now in Kokomo, you know, he's got to be, well, I wouldn't be surprised if the police are called on him for waking up the neighbors. It's not that late, but I'm sure people are going to think there's some sort of civil disobedience of some sort going on in this house because, you know, he is screaming at the top of his lungs. We didn't talk about him till about lap 150. Maybe at the first 20 laps, he didn't think he had a chance. He had a good starting spot, but you never know how these things are going to play out. From 7th to 1st, great battle. What a race. Well, all season long, every race got better, and wow, just wow.
That was absolutely fantastic to watch there. Christian Steele comes home in second. It looked as though it's going to be a photo finish. Christian Steele didn't have the oomph at the line. But Matt Pawelski did the right thing there, Paul. He didn't go for the win. He knew if he tried to dive it down the inside into turn number 3, there was a small chance that he could have ended up in the instant and losing that championship. But the cruelest of all cruel ironies, that Tim Holgate won the Indy 500 because Brandon Trost a year ago hit the wall, turn 3 with 5 corners to go. This year, with 6 corners to go, Holgate pulls off the racetrack, and with 5 corners to go, he loses the championship that he had almost in the bag the entire season.
This has got to be a heartbreak for Tim, but you know, you buy into a strategy, and that's what you do. You said it all along. You cannot waver, and Tim didn't. You know, driving around the track at 218 miles an hour has got to feel like trying to walk through quicksand while everyone else is speeding by you. It's just the most frustrating thing in the world. And then to know that you're not going to make it, and just praying that somebody sends out a yellow. But you did mention, of course, Matt made a very, very heads-up play. Knew he had it in the bag. Just got out of the way. He knew that Joe Branch was hungry for it, and it just wasn't necessary that he win this event. So heads-up driving, a very gentleman move by Pawelski, and just a great show.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, the race and post-race show will be up in a moment, but first, let's run through your final race results here from Indianapolis. As, after all, after everything was said and done, after 500 miles of racing, fuel strategy, pit strategy, pure speed versus the mileage, as we see the donuts there. For your champion, Matt Pawelski, let's see your final race results. And it is the kid from Kokomo, Indiana. It's Joe Branch in the Snake Pit Racing number 28 machine, who claims his first big-time Indy 500 victory. Christian Steele comes home in second, 53 1,000ths of a second back, and Matt Pawelski comes home in third, and that is enough to secure him a championship. Then it's Adam Dock in fourth, Martin Eagle-Kirkin in fifth. After, let's not forget, going down to the back of the field after his strategy error early in the race. Esparti in 6th. He had to slow down towards the end. Michael Chin 7th. Vic Cordell in 8th. Dave Jinks in 9th. And Brandon Trost rounds out your top 10. Further back, Christopher Demerit in 11th and Tim Holgate in 12th after running out of fuel towards the end of the event. Stanley Ench in 13th. Tim Doyle in 14th and Peters running out your top 15. 13 drivers on your lead lap here today. 2 drivers 2 laps down. 1 driver 3 laps down. That was Donald Strout, who finished the race in fine form. Joe Flanagan in 19th retired. Tim Miller, your first of your main retirees in P number 20. Then it's Jim McClure. We talked to him earlier on. He's in P21. Paul Jennings, Randy Krosno, Niles Anders, Bradley Walters, Borgenhagen, Mattinson, Ebo, and Simpson running out your 29 car field. But there's one driver today who gets to drink the virtual milk, kiss the virtual bricks, and call themselves an iRacing Indy champion, and it's one of Indiana's own. That is Joe Branch. We'll talk to him in a moment in the Racer Post-Race Show. You're watching the 16th Street Racing League on RaceSpot TV, iRacing Live, and on IndyCar.com. We'll be back in just a moment's time.
Sunday, Sunday, Sunday. Prepare to get a roundhouse of awesome square in your face hold, because the 400 at the Brickyard is back at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. It's got real bricks made of tears. Nothing's more American than the Brickyard. Not even an eagle punching another eagle at a rodeo. Gordon, Stewart, Bush, Jr. What about Jimmy? Shut up! There's a bajillion drivers. How do they all fit on the track? Witness the insanity of men. Mensanity. 400 miles of mensanity. Multiplied by 200 miles per hour equals $30. Math sucks! Still don't have your tickets? Kids 12 and under get in free. Go to Chinchillas. Bring your chinchilla. It gets in free. You got toast? Bring it, because there's tons of jam at the Brickfest with Justin Moore, the band Perry, and Brantley Gilbert. He's hot. Who said that? Sunday, Sunday, Sunday. Rip open a NASCAR-sized can of purpose.
My life has meaning.
Chug it!
Get out of my way!
Here's your man card. It's a card made of real man. Bring it to the 400 at the Brickyard July 27th and give your prefrontal cortex a wedgie. Google it!
Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's been a crazy, crazy event here at the Brickyard, where we came in with 4 drivers looking to secure themselves a 16th Street Racing League crown. In the end, 2 of the drivers, the outsiders, ended up having themselves issues on pit road. One got a speeding penalty on the way out, one got a speeding penalty on the way in. They were eliminated, so we were down to 2. And then we had the crazy slow versus fast. The hare versus the tortoise. The fuel saving versus the going for it. And this time, on the cathedral of speed, it was speed that won over strategy. Matt Pawelski is your 16th Street Racing League champion. We'll talk to him in a moment's time. But that was only one of 29 different storylines that came to the world center of everything that is Indy. One driver stood head and shoulders above the others when it came to it at the end, and after being involved in a last lap dash to the line, Joe Branch, from Indiana itself, came home winning his first big-time Indy 500 crown. And he joins us now here on Racebot TV, on iRacing Live, and on IndyCar.com as we welcome you to the Racer post-race show. Will Vincent, Paul Jenkins, Aaron Likens, and your Indy 500 champion, Joe Branch. Congratulations. Clearly, this must be the sweetest victory in your entire career to date.
It doesn't get any better, man. I don't know what else to say. Thanks to everybody. Thanks to my teammates, Tim Holgate, Niall Zanders, the setup gurus, everybody that worked on it. Man, to win this race is pretty sweet.
Now, we'll talk about the last stint, because that's the thing that really matters. You were embroiled in a battle with Matt Pawelski. Of course, he's a championship rival of your teammate, but you wanted the victory, and of course, you were on the fast option, your teammate was on the slow option. You could see your teammate getting closer and closer and closer and closer to you in the distance. What was in your mind going to about lap number 198, lap 199?
I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to think. I mean, I wanted Tim to win the championship. I knew I had to race Matt hard, though. I couldn't just let him go after Tim, and then I wanted to win the race, too. I mean, my heart was pounding. My fingers were sort of numb. I didn't know what to do.
You saw your teammate pull down to the inside, turn number 3, ironically, where he won, essentially, the Indy 500. Last year, he lost it in 2016. But then you had that final lap dash to the line against Christian Chip is the better part of valor. Yourself and Christian still, it was close at the line, 53 1,000ths of a second. At what point did you realize that you had it?
I knew.
When you came into turn 3, Matt Pawelski deciding discretion.
Where I had it, I was just didn't want to screw it up. I knew he'd get a run because he was staying behind us when we was swapping positions too wide, which was not easy to do with the dirty air. So as soon as it was just me, I knew he'd get a run. But I gotta thank my sponsor Verizon, everybody else that's helped, everybody that helps with the series, Brian that helps with the series, Indy Racer. It's been pretty cool. I'm excited for something else coming up here soon. Thanks for everybody.
Well, you thanked a load of people already, but we said this, winning an Indy 500 is always a magical moment, regardless, be it, you know, the bottom split of the rookie series and the Indy 500, or being a big marquee event like this. But the floor is yours, Joe. You are an Indy champion. Say what you want to the world.
Man, thanks to everybody watching these races. There's so many people I could thank that really has made a hobby of what we do into something that's been broadcast on IndyCar and stuff that's just been fun to help out with. I've helped out with it for a couple years, so it's really a blast to do. We put a lot of time and effort into it. Obviously, there's not pay involved. We just have fun with it, and I want to thank everybody that makes it happen.
You're going to hear his kid in the background. Go and get yourself a bottle of milk. Joe Branch, you are the 2016 Indy 500 champion. And we move from one champion now to another, because coming into the last 50 laps, we didn't quite know what was going to happen. Then, lap number 199, coming in towards turn number 3, Matt Pawelski, your heart must have just come into your mouth. Congratulations.
Thanks. I guess you could say it certainly made a bit of a jump. I thought, for a while there, I thought Tim had enough saved, and then I saw him backing off, and then I started worrying. And then I started worrying about battling Joe and Christian and whether or not I have enough time to get to Joe. I had to get to Tim, and the chips fell my way. Tim had the fuel issue, and it worked out. You know, I saw that there was a very audible amount of yelling on the TeamSpeak. It was, it was just insane.
Well, talk us through your race, because you've been at the front pretty much the entire time, and we've talked about it quite heavily in the booth. You kind of want to be at the front to be in it to win it, but it's been crazy racing up there. Lead change after lead change after lead change. Yourself here today, you led yourself 97 laps. You led yourself half the race overall. That must have been physically and mentally grueling for you?
I mean, the race in itself, I mean, we had, I don't even know how, but we had for some reason it would just be able to work with, little aero, a lot of aero. We were playing with it the whole race, according to what the track was doing and what position I was in. And I mean, for the whole race, there's only really one period of time, and I think it was after that last caution where we were battling as a group of like the top 4, top 5. And that was really the sketchiest part of the race. I mean, for the most part, it was pretty, I wouldn't say laid back, but people were giving each other room. We were all being smart about it. Because, I mean, it is a 500-mile race, and it's just, for the most part, there's no sense in going after it early. But on my end, we were tied, and I didn't want to have to ride my ride defending anything. And I figured my back was against the wall, all the chips were out to play. So you just went for it from the get-go. You just, whatever you can to get to the front, because at the end of the day, that is the safest place on the track. So it was just a lot of trying to get your car in the right place and just being, as aggressive as you deemed fit and how much you trusted your car to carry you in with those moves.
2 more questions. Number 1, Henrique Ebo, do you know how close he was to taking you out the race?
I've heard about that a little bit. I have an idea, but I don't really want to think about it. So
you can now. It's okay. And final question, really. When all is said and done, we talked about pit stops quite heavily here today. We had a lot of green flag pit stops. 2 of the championship contenders, Tim Doyle, Brandon Trost, ended their races with speeding penalties. Just how nerve-wracking was that final pit stop onto pit road, knowing that if you made it, you had a 50% chance minimum of winning the championship?
Honestly, it wasn't that stressful because I knew Christian was coming in behind me, and that was a little bit stressful. But Christian's a smart driver. He's a good driver. He's very aware of what's going on. He has good car control. So going in there, I knew I had a bit of a gap on Tim, and that if need be, I had to hammer down and go. But it wasn't really that stressful. The most stressful one was the one right before that. I came in, I think, 20 miles an hour too hot, and had to back it way down to like 20 or 30 to get not black flagged. And just real quick, speaking of freaking out like that, I want to thank my team, Broken Arrow. They were excellent over the weekend. They were great in the race. They were just such a big help throughout the entire process. I can't thank them enough. I got to thank Ryan, Chris, I think Brendan, just everybody who came out and helped with the setups. And I got to thank Ryan and Mike Perry and Chris and Dave Jinks and Gary Borkenhagen, all those guys for just helping keep me calm in the car and just keep running the fuel numbers for me, do the strategy, and just like I said, if I screwed up like that, just keep me calm, keep my eyes on the prize. So, yeah.
Yeah, and unfortunately, we were unfortunate in the fact that we weren't able to see Ryan here today. Of course, your teammate, very strong at Indy, and very close to winning an Indy 500 himself previously. But to run through the prizes that you shall receive: a 2016 IndyCar hard card, a Indy 500 commemorative champagne gift set autographed by Tony Kanard, a set of Firestone tires, a Sirius XM satellite receiver, a 2016 IndyCar Nation fan club membership, a Racing Magazine subscription for 2016, and $250 in iRacing credits. Which one are you looking forward to making use of the most?
Probably the hard cards. The IndyCar guys, they do such a great job. I went to Pocono, and we had a great experience there through some friends of my dad's. My dad works in the same industry as MyJack, so we were able to get hooked up there. And Kristen Merritt was there, so if you have any questions about that, you can talk to him about it. And it was a lot of fun. But those guys take such great care of the fans, and so to be able to have those hard cards and be able to use them will just be absolutely amazing. So I'm thrilled.
Well, the floor is yours. We know you thanked a couple of people already, but is anyone else you want to thank anyone here today? The floor is now yours. Mr. Matt Pawelski, you are the champion.
I gotta thank Tim Holgate. He was an excellent competitor this entire time. All the respect in the world to him. He showed a tremendous amount of respect at Watkins, a tremendous amount of respect everywhere we ran. He gave me room. He raced me hard. He raced me clean. And so, got to give him credit. He was just an amazing competitor to race against. And then I got to thank, who I got to thank? I got to thank Team Enthusiastically Hold My Broken Rebel X or Raptor Daddy Banshee Snakes as Jesus takes the wheel through a power slide. Got to thank them because, the comic relief was really nice and keeping everything downplayed throughout this entire process.
Well, congratulations, Matt Pawelski, your 2015/16 16th Street Racing League champion. And before we go any further, Aaron, worthy champion, because of course Matt came back in the season after Holgate dominated early to really put himself in the hunt heading into Indy. And, you know, I always think in situations like this, it's a bit like getting into a championship game in college football. They might say, oh, you don't deserve to be here, or oh, you're the outsider. But you know what? When the chips on the table and you've got 500 miles ahead of you, it's who can be the best on the day. Simple as that.
Absolutely. You got to put yourself in position. Holgate did win 3 races. Pawelski, no wins, but here is a staggering stat. As tight as the racing was, as close as it is, Matt Pawelski had 9 top 5s in 11 races. That is consistency at its finest. And just getting 1 top 5 is an accomplishment in the 16th Street League. Getting 9. And very well, had he been pushed to the wall tonight, definitely had a car that could have won, but when your competitor falls by the wayside, you just got to do what you got to do. And Pawelski very well could have won tonight, but well, he did what he needed to do, won the championship, 9 top 5s in 11 races, just incredible.
We'll tell you one more thing, by the way, Matt Pawelski. You had the privilege of being watched today by Abbas Ladak.
That's an honor. Absolute honor.
There we are. We're going to continue the Race Up post-race show. Plenty of drivers to talk about as the 16th Street Racing League season comes to a close. Next up, we're going to hand it over to the one and only Mr. Aaron Likens, and he is going to be stood by with AeroX Racing's Christian Steele.
Well, Christian, really don't know how to do this interview because on one hand, you got second place, but on the other hand, it was just 52 thousandths of a second to the win. How where do you put this? Seconds good, or are you looking at just that little bit of gap that what could have been?
I mean, I was really hoping for a top 5 there. You know, I've had a lot of bad luck throughout the season, I guess you guys would see. So I mean, I'm pretty happy with P2. You know, it would be obviously nice to win the race, but after all this bad luck and everything that's happened, I get wrecked out of like 3 races in a row. You know, it's a good way for me to end the season, I think.
We had a split strategy in the second half of that race. Did you think with 25 laps to go that you would be in a position going for the win?
I had like John, Randy, Terry, and I had a bunch of guys helping me out with the fuel. We knew Holgate pitted on 35 to go. We knew he would have to save or pit again. So we decided to split it even and hope for the best, really, and get the most out of our tires.
The draft, we saw a lot of draft passes, a lot of times where you would be able to pass 2 cars in one straightaway. Was the draft more pronounced than perhaps other races here, or was it status quo?
It was definitely more pronounced. You could make a pass, like, especially if the guy in front of you is in clean air, then you could definitely make a pass. And I wouldn't, you can't really pass as easily when you're in a pack because the guy in front of you has the draft. So it kind of balances itself out. It still is the same. But
you sounded happy with second. Is there anything tonight, tomorrow that you're going to think, well, maybe if I would have done this on lap 199 or 200? Did you have anything for Joe Branch?
I mean, I think I could have trimmed out a bit more wing, and I also, on my second to last pit stop, I did miss my box there. So I think if that didn't happen and I trimmed out my wing, I think I could have won the race. But such is life, so.
Well, still second place in the 16th Street Indy 500. Very incredible run. Who would you like to thank?
Everybody at Banshee X. We worked on the setup for a pretty good amount of time, and we were really struggling there at it came down to the last 30 minutes, and I found something out that we were able to make the car last, and we had a really good car over the long run. I'm really pleased with that.
Well, second place here tonight. Do you think maybe looking ahead to future seasons that this is the turning point that bad luck gets shaken?
I certainly hope so. I mean, I'll be ready for next year, hopefully, and get improved on those road courses, and hopefully I can make my own run for a championship like Matt and Tim did.
Well, that is Christian Steele finishing second by just 52 thousandths of a second. Very close finish and already looking ahead to next season, Will.
Yeah, Christian Steele, one of the up-and-coming talents here on the IndyCar side of things on the iRacing.com service. Let's head it back a position, shall we? Paul Jenkins is stood by with the guy who, at one point, Paul, was very close to potentially winning this race on that kind of mid-strategy. Burn it to the end, slightly off sequence. Adam Dock ends up with a top 5 finish. Over to you, Paul.
And Adam, pretty exciting race for you. And starting 17th, your strategy had to have been a little bit different from everybody else. Did you have a specific strategy going in?
Yeah, it sounds kind of corny. My strategy was just to survive. I mean, it's 200 laps. There's no reason to get in a hurry on lap 10. Just take your time. It'll come to you.
And towards the end, of course, you found yourself at the front of the field several times, led 13 of the laps in the event, and picked up a bonus point for that. But towards the end there, kind of a couple of different strategies, and looked like you had you committed to the two-stop strategy towards the end, and probably wisely so. A bunch of guys tried to stretch the field and just didn't make it, including, of course, Tim. When you got past that last yellow on lap 100 and it started having that green flag feel, what was your opinion on that? Did you feel that it wasn't going to go yellow?
To be honest with you, I thought it was going to be a lot of yellow in the beginning, but it was nice to see it get stretched out so early, and we kind of had that run in the beginning. So my thought, on lap 100 was, man, if this thing goes green, I know about how much fuel I need to get to the end, and that was kind of the strategy I played. And I thought, well, I mean, you really can't make it. I mean, as we saw, a couple guys tried and came really close, but I was like, there is no way. So I just kept her in fuel map 1 and just went for broke.
Absolutely, Adam. A very strong run considering the excitement of this race and where you started, and you certainly put on a good show out there. Is there anybody you want to thank?
Yeah, I'd like to thank obviously the organizers for 16th Street for putting the event together and allowing me to partake. Race Spot, of course, for broadcasting. You guys always do an excellent job. Will, on a side note, glad to see the Will and Dave show back earlier this week. That was a lot of fun. And to all the participants, that was a lot of fun. Everybody I raced was very clean, a lot of fun.
Adam Dock, 4th place finisher at the Indy 500. And Will, back to you in the booth.
Thank you very much there. The Racer post-race show will continue. Got a couple more people. I say a couple. We've got a skin full of people still to talk to. Let's talk next to Margin Nagel-Kirkin. Nagel-Kirkin finished here actually surprisingly well, despite the fact that, Margin, you had the horrible sod's law luck of strategy about midway into the race. Caution coming out just after you came on towards pit road. That alternate strategy, ironically, was pretty much perfect. If the race went green, they decided to put a couple of cautions in the way for you, though.
Yeah, that was unfortunate, but at that stage in the race I had no other choice. I was parked down in the mid-pack with a good car, but all the cars ahead of me, I expected them to have either the same pace or faster, so not pitting with them wouldn't have gotten me anything, so I risked it. And yeah, after that it was saving, trying to get back up the normal sequence and doing it differently in the last one again, and it got me 5th.
Well, take us through the recovery drive, because of course coming back to being last on the lead lap, having to work your way through the field on a track which, some will say it's been kind of moderately easy to overtake today, but it's also very easy to get overtaken. So that makes it very difficult to get yourself back into the game after some difficulties. Talk us through the emotion, talk us how you recovered, how you bounced back, and how you got yourself back into contention with all the craziness that happened in those last 20 laps.
I have 2 people to thank for that. First one would be Christian Steele, my teammate. He came up with a really nice drivable setup. You could just strip off aero, put on aero, and it would still be nicely balanced. That allowed me just to concentrate on the laps. And the second person would be Vic Cordell, who, when he was near me, just stayed behind, tucked in, no fighting for position, and we could just drive pace. And that got me back up a long way.
Well, you get yourself a P5 in the end. The championship didn't go, something that you'd like to remember, so to say, necessarily. But as we head ourselves out of Indy, we kind of look again at Indy in 4 2/3 months' time. Of course, it's the 100th running of the Indy 500. It's also, of course, the 7th running of the iRacing.com Indianapolis 500. Are your eyes focused on that prize, or what's next for you in the Indy cars?
The Indy 500 definitely is another goal. We run it in ISO WC, we run it in 16th Street, we run it in iRacing, and that's the 3 big ones you want to win or have a good result. So yeah, that's definitely something I'm looking forward to.
Well, before we let you go, Martin, we'll give yourself a quick chance to give a shout out to your teammates and your friends, if you'd like, at the end of the season.
Yeah, once more, thanks to Steele and my teammates. Good setup, good way of running, and definitely also to the 16th Street for opening up the running of Indy for everybody, and doing it on this day so I can actually run it. Awesome.
Martin Egelkirchen coming home with a decent finish here today at Indianapolis. Going to hand it back to Paul. Paul stood by with Austin Espity, who comes home with a top 10 finish in that Treble 7 car. Of course, we did see him pretty high up, getting towards the end of the event, but pit stops decided to play their part.
And Austin, 6th place finish here, nothing really to sneeze at, but you were up in the front of the pack for quite a while there, and kind of dicing around with the front guys. And early on in the race, with all the cautions, did you have a specific strategy in mind?
I was trying to ride behind either Tim, both Tims actually, or Chris, but turns out Tim Doyle actually was pulling me the entire race, which I'm very thankful for because I was stalled out in the draft. On pit road, I had a lot of mistakes, hit the wall twice, which cost me on the final stop. I had to get a new front wing. It was like a 12-second stop, so that costed me some time, but I just try to play it safe and hopefully come home with a top 5, but I'll take 6th.
And Austin, towards the end of the race, fuel strategy, it became obvious to you weren't going to make it. And do you have the feel that it was going to go green all the way?
I did, because of how well it was. We were bunched up and we weren't really moving, and kind of hoping that would stay like that for the remaining of the race. So it worked out, but like I said, had to get a new front wing on the final stop, and kind of blew my chances of probably getting a top 5, even a podium.
And of course, we were talking about that pretty much all broadcast, how the pits here can be very tricky when you come sailing in there after such a long stint at speed. And obviously, it was something that worked on you a bit. But now that 16th Street is over, what's next for an Austin Espity?
I'm probably gonna take a break, wait until Joe's series starts back up. Then I'm probably gonna stay away from official racing, but just continue doing leagues like this because they're amazing. Can't thank Brian and everyone else enough for putting it on.
And while you're on that roll, anyone else you want to give the nod to?
Basically everybody who's helped me throughout the season. I've been working with basically a couple different people throughout the entire season, so all those guys that really just helped me too, because I was the only guy for my team, so support from everybody was really good.
Austin Espety's 6th place finisher here at the Indy 500 after a solid run. Just a couple of mistakes cost him from the top 5. So we'll see him here soon. And Will, back to you.
Yeah, thanks. And before we go any further, it'd be interesting to have a quick chat here and about the fact that, this is the sort of thing, very close to, if there was just like 1 or 2 things that didn't happen, it might have been a little bit. That's the thing with Indy. One mistake can be the difference between you being on pit road with a speeding penalty and you being fighting for the end of the race, or you being in traffic or not in traffic, or the fact that you're running by yourself and you've lost the draft. Anything can happen here at Indy.
And that's what's been bringing people to 16th and Georgetown for over 100 years. It's that fact right there that in racing, you never know. You can have the fastest car. Well, let's go back to 1912. Ralph De Palma led 196 laps and it win the race. Oops. It's been that type of drama that's been at Indy for over 100 years now. That is it's been the pinnacle of motorsport for over 100 years. And if it were predictable, if it weren't for those minor things, then what would the excitement be?
Well, precisely. That is, in my opinion, really why we race what we do, because we have to take the risks in order to get the rewards. One of those drivers, actually, he did take a lot of risks and in some ways had some rewards going his way, but then didn't go his way in the end. Christopher Demerit, and of course we're expecting Aaron to see him there or there in the fight. He was my pick for the race. He actually did lead, or get himself, yeah, he led a total of 11 laps here today. Got himself to the front of the field, was at the front of the field towards the sharp end of the race. Ends up, though, disappointing body by his standard. He stood by with you.
Yeah, Demerit leading in the 190s. Were you really, if a yellow would have come out in the 190, like before you made your pit stop, was there any way you could have stretched it? Any way at all?
I only needed to save about a lap, and I think it was like 1.4 laps was the number. I was either hoping for, I don't know, I was hoping that fuel map 8 was going to help me more than it did. I had mixed feelings about a caution, since that would mean Holgate and Matt would have to battle it out, but overall, honestly, the handling of our the Broken Arrow car this weekend was just great, and I had a blast, even though it didn't quite work out for my race.
I have to ask, when you made your pit stop, as you pull onto pit road, the then leaders go by. Do you think, well, you did all that you could, or is there just a sinking feeling of what could have been?
Yeah, I would say the what could have been more settled in when I was thinking about pit stops. I think one of the times I was the last car to pit, and then the next time after that it was Holgate and I, so I knew now that I could probably have saved another lap that would have bought me the win, but honestly, I was just in for the fun. I wasn't going for points, so I saw an opportunity, maybe went on fuel mileage, and I went for it, and it didn't work out, but I had a great time in that race.
Well, that's what it's all about. Came just a couple laps short, led 11 laps. That is our fourth most laps led. Came close. Anybody want to thank for your almost fuel mileage win?
Gotta thank everyone at Broken Arrow, especially Matt and Ryan Norton for helping out this weekend. Brandon Trano, all the guys on Broken Arrow for this. We had a great car, and honestly couldn't be happier for the 11th place that I got.
Well, as we just said, leading into this interview, we race for that, and 11th place for Christopher Demerit doesn't really show just how close he came to winning here tonight.
I tell you what, though, there was one driver who was very, very close to not only winning the race here today, but winning the championship. We'll talk to him in a moment's time, but first we'll hand it back to Paul. Paul stood by with Brandon Trost, who, well, again, was one of those drivers that coulda, shoulda, woulda, coulda. However, this year, Paul, it was a speeding penalty that put pay to his chance.
And Brandon, as Will alluded, a heartbreaking letdown for you. But let's take you back first to the start. Of course, a very good start for you, and pretty much at the front of the field the whole time. And, of course, we knew last year you had a fuel strategy in mind. Did you have that in the back of your mind when you got into this race?
The basic strategy I'd feel was stay out as long as possible, save fuel behind people if you, and don't do anything stupid like last year.
And indeed, I believe it was your first stint. You stayed a full 3 laps longer than everyone else, and we were pretty. We remarked that was pretty remarkable fuel savings there, and we were expecting that that was kind of going to be the thing for you. But with the amount of yellows out there, did you feel like this race was going to be riddled with yellows, and perhaps that was not going to be the strategy to adopt?
I knew there'd be a long green run somewhere. We had those yellows in the middle of the race, but really they were few and far between for the most part. It just seemed, they fell in the same area because that last run was nice and long at the end.
And so let's talk about what we don't want to talk about, the speeding penalty. What happened?
Well, I don't know if you guys caught this on the video or not, but the car in front of me must have been damaged or something. I don't really know the circumstances behind it, but he hit the cone. So there was only one cone when I came in, and it was the inside cone. I'd been judging off the outside cone every time, so I didn't have a cone to base on the braking zone. So I missed it and got a speeding.
And I did notice that I don't know if the camera was on it, but I did notice the car dragging a cone along, and come to think of it, that did seem to be what had happened there, and a real unfortunate break for you, especially considering you were really, you had the car to beat pretty much all day. You were up front, you were making passes, and throughout the race, you guys were doing a lot of leapfrogging. Was that an effort to try and gain some distance from the rest of the pack, or was it just a matter of having the momentum and just making the moves?
Honestly, I wasn't trying to leapfrog anyone. What I was trying to do, I wanted to stay in front of Pawelski and Holgate and Doyle, and I really couldn't. So I tried to sit behind them because I had more downforce. But you'd get into situations where you had a big enough run, you kind of had to make the move, or else you were going to lose too much time and someone was going to run you over.
Yeah, and it was something we were talking about also. Is of course, this is a track of momentum, and you want to be careful lifting because you can get run over from behind. It's happened to me plenty of times, and Indy seems to love me. But so a 10th place, pretty much a disappointment for you, Brendan. What's next for a Brendan Trost? What are you going to do from here now that 16th Street is over?
Well, probably take a break a little bit. Maybe do some winter series stuff, maybe a little bit of fixed stuff, and wait for next season.
Any thoughts about doing the Indy 500 here in May?
The last 2 times I've done that on a tablet. So if it's that way again, probably not. That doesn't go very well.
And anybody else? Anybody you want to thank for this?
Adam Dock for the setup work. Christopher Demerit for his setup work when he was on the team formerly. Pawelski for his former setup work. Everyone that used to be on the team who helped out building that set. Jennings, everyone who left the team recently. Major help for us, so gotta thank those guys. Of course, Adam Dock, who's still on the team.
And all right, Brendan, 10th place finish for Indy 500 here. 8 laps led. Did get a bonus point on that, and so we will send it back to Will.
Indeed so. Last and very not least, the guy who came second place in the championship. He didn't really have the day he wanted for the last 2.75 miles, but for about 190 something of those miles, he was there. He was having himself a good race. He had a chance of not only winning the 16th Street Racing League Indy 500, but also a chance of retaining his championship crown. But then, it all changed. Lap number 199. And Tim, how ironic, where you saw a driver have an incident and you became an Indy champion last year, same place where you lose your championship this year.
Yeah, that irony didn't go unnoticed. It was, the strategy just didn't go for us today. We had a little bit of a goof on how many laps there were to go. I thought there was 34, and in fact there was 35. We would have made it. If we would have made it if I had conserved the entire time. Since we realized we were going to be short, I kind of went for it and was hoping that the guys would think I had enough and would race and maybe wreck. But we needed a yellow, and we didn't get it. So, but in the end, the championship didn't just come down to this race. There was other races where we didn't run consistent, where we had a couple DNFs, and Matt ran consistent the entire season. So congrats to him. Definitely a championship well earned.
Now, you talk about the championship, 343 points, 19 points back behind Matt Pawelski at the end of this one. But you went onto that alternate strategy compared to Pawelski. Was that simply because of the fact that you didn't feel the car wasn't that strong on the second half of the run? We've not only seen you kind of sliding that back end around, we've seen Tim Doyle do it. We saw, of course, Jim McClure lose his car midway into a run earlier on. Was there just an issue with that race car late on that prevented you from doing the same strategy as your competitors?
No, I felt good about the car.
Okay.
I felt pretty solid on it the whole time. Sometimes you're just getting a little bit aggressive with the jacker and with the tools while I was behind traffic, because most of the time we're just trying to save fuel. Half the time when I was back there, I was in fuel map 2 or 3, so we weren't pushing it at all.
Now, from this stage on, the championship's been passed over to Matt Pawelski. You don't go away empty-handed. I feel like a game show host when I do this time. Of course, you've had yourself a great season, and prizes come your way as well. A Sirius XM satellite receiver, 2016 IndyCar Nation Fan Club membership, 2016 Racer Magazine subscription. Don't forget, by the way, you can get the latest Racer Magazine either online or in stores now, and $150 in iRacing credits. But I'm guessing you're looking forward to the month of May when you get to revenge yourself and get yourself back to the Indy 500 one more time.
Yeah, definitely. If I'm in town, I'll be in for that race. Last year I was out doing some real world racing, so I wasn't able to make it. Not sure if I'll be in the same situation this year, but in the end, I'll take being in a real race car any day over being in a sim car. This is awesome stuff, but sometimes you just have to have priorities.
And just before we let you go, Tim, the floor is yours. Anyone you want to give a shout out to before we say goodbye for another season to you?
I definitely want to thank Brian Simpson and Mike Kitchell for putting together this league, and Joe Branch for helping with the administration, all the guys behind the scenes that do the work with that. I got to thank RaceBot for the great broadcast you guys do. Thank iRacing for the great sim there is. I want to thank all my competitors. I mean, it was an awesome season of racing. I mean, I think almost every race was just fantastic. There's a couple where we DNF'd and were some great things, but yeah, almost every other race where we finished was epic. I mean, some of the best racing we've ever done. So I want to thank everybody who was a part of the league, and I got to thank my sponsor Roboto for keeping me comfortable, and thank the guys in the Snake Pit racing team for all the work they do on the cars and practicing.
Well, thank you very much. Tim Holgate there, coming home second place in the championship, and well, Paul, that pretty much wraps up another season of the 16th Street Racing League, and from now on, we turn our attention, ironically, back towards this racetrack. 4.5 months, we'll all be hyped, we'll all be ready to go once again at Indy as we get ready for the 7th iRacing.com Indy 500, which of course is either a week or before, or a day before, or around that time before the 100th running of the real Indy 500.
And if this race is any indication of what we can expect in May, man, I'll tell you what, I am just looking forward to it. And I have to say, without a doubt, and I've said this to several people already behind the scenes, this has got to be, and I've been watching racing for decades, and I have to tell you, this has been the most exciting race I have ever seen, live or simulated. This had everything. And it really is just what 16th Street is about. This has been a phenomenal year for 16th Street. IndyCar and Racer coming on and sponsoring this whole thing and supporting us, and of course the full contract with RaceSpot for the coverage with you and Aaron. It's been an absolute honor to do this, and I can't say enough what an incredible experience this has been, and what a great what a great time I've had doing this.
And Aaron, in a couple of months' time, we get the gang back together just one more time. And you know what? I was just thinking, could they ever have imagined in 1909 that A, there'd be 100 Indy 500s, and B, the fact that they wouldn't just have Indy 500s, they have Indy 500s of people sat at home taking part in a virtual world as well.
Oh, never, never, never. And I have to say, I feel that it's just an absolute shame that it's over and we have to wait so long to the next one of these. This season, with IndyCar coming on board, I don't think, in terms of Indy 500s, I don't know if we ever had a race like this. I don't know if we've seen, or even remotely close. We've had some great battles, but never so many drivers in the hunt with the championship on the line, coming down to the final turn, final lap, and for everybody involved, this is, I think, beyond what they imagined. And it's been an honor to be here in the booth with you week in, week out, Will, and all I can say is I am so pumped for the next one of these.
Indeed so, and don't forget, ladies and gentlemen, RaceSpot TV, iRacing Live, your official home for the 2016 iRacing.com Indianapolis 500. We can confirm the gang will be back together one more time We will be your official home. We are the best in the business when it comes to IndyCar. We're going to bring it to you once again. Racesport TV, also your official home of the iRacing.com World Championship Grand Prix Series, and announced today also the Blancpain Endurance World Championship GT Series as well. But before we go here on Racesport TV and on iRacing Live, it's time for us as Racesport to say a couple of thank yous as well. We're going to start, of course, with the guys over at IndyCar. To Brian Simpson, to one of my best friends, Mike Kitchell, for bringing all of this together. Scott Manifold, Joe Branch, for the work that they do behind the scenes as well. You guys see a broadcast, you see the work that we put in, but we don't get to broadcast great races for you guys unless the people running it do a good job behind the scenes. So thank you so much to the people over at the 16th Street Racing League and at IndyCar themselves for ensuring that this year has been a success. Next, thank you so much to Verizon for being the pre-race coverage sponsor, and to Racer Magazine for being the post-race show coverage all season long. Also got to give a huge shout out to Paul Jenkins, to Aaron Likens, to Hugo Louise, to Rachel Whiteford, Cam Walsh, and everyone who's been involved. A part of our commentary, our broadcast, our technical, our promotional crew here on Racesport TV. This has been one of the biggest, one of the best series that we have done all year long. It's actually been one of the best races that we've ever done here tonight on Racesport TV. We were talking about that one off air. And thank you, as always, to all of the drivers that has participated, be it in one event or be it in the entire season. Be it running towards the rear of the field or be it battling out front. And I'll say one thing, the whole people that say if you ain't first, you're last, they're liars. Doesn't matter where you are. If you're winning races or if you're towards the rear of the field, if you're having fun, that is all that matters. And thank you also to the fans. I mean, I've been joking about it all season long. IndyCar versus NASCAR. Well, you know what? We won the ratings. Racesport TV, we're still the best. We always will be the best. So thank you to the fans for helping make this an exciting series for us to broadcast. The write-up will be available on the racer.com website in a couple of days' time, so don't forget to check that one out. Our aerial coverage has been brought to you by And One Design. Pre-race coverage and this presentation of the 16th Street Racing League has been powered by Verizon. This has been a Racer post-race show. I've been Will Vincent, Paul Jenkins, Aaron Likens. We'll see you in May. We're going back to Indy again soon.